What's
Oh.
going on? A whole bunch of folks, a whole bunch of people that haven't been around lately popping back in. Good to see you guys. Good to see you, Saudamini.
Oh, Saudamini.
Hello, sorry I
Hello.
was away.
Not a
So
problem.
happy to be back.
Good, glad you're back. I saw some of your tweets.
Vacation time.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I'm ready. Is everybody else ready?
Yes, let's do
Oh, let's do it.
this.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay, here we go. The top story at the moment is from Vice internal documents. Oh boy.
The
About
best kind.
internal documents show how Amazon's Astro robot decision making works. And before we even get into that, we should probably get into the second biggest story of the day, which is Amazon debuts Astro, a $1,000 short robot with an Echo Show like 10-inch display on top, meant to roam around the home. Invite only program is open for applications. I'm going to tweet this out to the Tech News Twitter account for those who've not seen the Astro robot, which was just announced. Amazon had an event about 14 hours ago where they had made a whole bunch of announcements, and we will go into everything they announced. And the thing that's catching everybody's imagination is this cute little robot with two little wheels and a screen, and it follows you around the house.
This is what the Stasi was missing out on. Cute, adorable animations.
And I guess we were.
It is adorable.
Yeah, it is cute. It looks like something out of a Disney movie, and now Alexa is going to follow you around the house.
And it'll record your blood pressure from a distance. There's no possible way that data could be useful for Amazon's health initiatives.
Good Lord.
It says Amazon's long-awaited home robot is here, and we saw a leak, I don't know, a week ago that hinted about this, about a robot following you around the house. You guys remember that? And that it couldn't go upstairs, and now looking at the design, clearly it can't go upstairs, not in this version anyways. And it talks about, this article from The Verge talks about the Jetsons, which makes sense because they had a robot in their house.
We need Rudy. We need Rosie.
Rosie the robot. That's right.
It looks like Cosmo, like the old school Pixar little robot, right? Where does it go around? That was a little one for your kids. It's about $100 or so.
Jetsons already had people flying, so we'll have people flying and robots grounded in the house.
But notice one thing. As advanced as they got, there was still Rosie folding laundry and shit.
And he still had to go to work.
Values.
So it's a
And she still had to go to the grocery store.
It's $999.99, which will, again, by the way, Americans, this is another thing that Europeans find very comical about America, is our obsession with prices that end in 99.99.
It works. It works.
That's
When the
how you know
ex-head of
you're
Apple
getting a
stores
good
essentially went to
deal.
the JCPenney, and he said, let's rebrand this whole thing. One of the things that they got rid of is saying, let's basically round everything off and basically make everything be the exact same, flat pricing for everything. It was a universal disaster. They basically lost out on so much from that policy. So yeah, it's a big thing in our culture.
It
when you got rid of
it speaks to the naivete of Americans that we can't, that we're actually influenced by a fucking penny like that. That we're not adult enough to understand that there's actually no real difference between.
It worked for 99-cent stores. It just didn't work for JCPenney because and the reason is because JCPenney was considered a higher line retailer, so they got out of their lane. And that's
paradoxically, does not a dollar store sound cheaper than a 99-cent store though?
Yeah.
Weirdly.
And a third pound burger versus a quarter-pound burger.
Oh,
one of them was taken, so somebody had to call it something else. I mean, that was a practical decision.
I blame the fact that we aren't on that trick. This is the root cause of everything that's gone wrong in our society. So it's $1,000, okay? Despite what Amazon's pricing says, the price is it's $1,000. You can take that extra penny with tax and shipping.
Yeah, Amazon sees it as bringing together many different parts of the company: robotics, AI, home monitoring, cloud services, all in one device. Best described as the love child between a Roomba and an Echo Show smart display. Will it clean your floor? That'd be amazing. The Astro is meant to be the next step in what Amazon believes to be the seemingly inevitable home robot. Amazon claims the Astro can do a wide variety of things you might want from a home robot. It can map out your floor plan and obey commands to go to a specific room. Oh, that's clever. It can recognize faces and deliver items to a specific person. It can play music and show you the weather and answer questions like any Echo Smart display. It can be used for video calls. Always keeping
Tyler, it has a beer canister. Right, there's a place where you can put beers.
I guess that's what it means by it can bring things to you, yeah? It can be used for video calls, always keeping you in frame by literally following your movements. It can roam around your house when you aren't home, making sure everything is okay. It can raise its periscope camera to show you whether you've turned the stove off. It can...
Killer app is if this thing can take your Amazon packages for you or receive them any time of day. I'll shut up.
Ooh, it has no manipulators, though.
It can use third-party accessories to record data like blood pressure. So you need a third-party blood pressure monitor, sensor that can.
Or just optical data with things, because they have some things where you can monitor it purely off of facial recognition if you've got IR band with heat sensitivity.
It says, but as ambitious as the Astro robot is, it's still very much a first cut at what a home assistant robot could be. It doesn't have any arms or appendages. It can't clean your floors. It can't climb stairs. It can't go outside of your home. And it probably can't do a zillion other things. I'm not thinking of, at the moment, that's part of the reason why Amazon is limiting its availability at launch, even after years of development. It still has a lot to figure out. The Astro stands roughly 2 feet high, weighs 20 pounds. Its main drive wheels are about 12 inches in diameter, large enough to clear door thresholds and move about through carpet. While a single caster in the back helps it keep balanced, the Astro can zip along at top speeds of 1 meter per second, and that's pretty quick. And it has the ability to move in 360 degrees forward, back, in any direction it pleases. Inside the plastic-clad shell are 5 different motors, one for each drive wheel, one to raise and lower its periscope camera, and 2 to twist and tilt its face, the screen, which is like a tablet or iPad. That face is effectively the screen lifted off of an Echo Show 10, which is like Amazon's version of an iPad with Alexa built in. It's got an array of sensors in its bezel, plus a standard 5 megapixel video calling camera. Most of the time, the screen displays 2 circles that behave as eyes, allowing you to understand what the Astro is doing or where it's planning to go. It can also show some limited personality through the circles, contorting them into different shapes and angles, similar to the ill-fated Jibo, but those circles aren't in another similar row. Astro will use sensors to map out your home. You can label each room and adjust the boundaries in the Astro Smart Home app. You can also set up specific viewpoints in your home that the robot can remember. From there, you can tell Astro go to a specific location, either with a voice command or remotely through the app. Since the Astro can't go up and downstairs, Amazon expects most people to place it on the main floor of their home. Amazon says all the processing and storage for these maps happen locally on the device. Then a portion of that data is sent securely to the cloud. Between the sensors, I think the telescope that comes out of this thing goes way high up in the air. A 42-inch tall periscope camera allows Astro to see over counters. So the camera sensor pops out of the top of its head and goes up 42 inches tall, which is, kind of almost face high. And that's where the camera is. So that's why you can do video calls with it to people, and it can see far beyond, it can see at kind of human eye level, even though it's based on the ground. It has a periscope, a little telescoping periscope that pops out of the top of its head with a camera on top. Kind of trippy looking. And like any robot vacuum, it can charge itself at the charging dock when it needs to. The brains of it are Qualcomm chips, and Astro's functionality is built on top of Fire OS and Linux. And the design is,
Will it survive a fall from the third story balcony?
I can see the charging dock now, which looks like a little Roomba charging dock, and I can see the 2 little soda can or beer can holders. Somebody has to put the drinks in the holder, and then it can bring it to somebody. So that's I guess what's this one? The Astro's rear payload area is customizable. Amazon anticipates third-party. You know what this could do? That rear payload could be like pet food. And so this thing...
Magic.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you could have like a little dispenser, have it somewhere else, and then just like, the robot can chase your dog can chase the robot around the house and stuff and knock it over.
Yeah. Your dog could get some. It's like a playmate for your dog while you're not home.
Just hope that the dog doesn't poop, or you might have like the Roomba thing.
Oh,
Need special AI not to spread it all across the house.
I gotta say, it looks pretty cool. So
it's for a price of an iPhone. That's not bad.
So flash your mics if you think you're gonna order the Astro.
Well, they failed the early adopter market here.
Yeah,
nobody.
It's not conducive.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go please.
Oh, okay. Of course, right. I'll definitely look at this from an accessibility point of view, and in all of those, as I don't know, as great maybe as the effectiveness of the robots is going to be, there is no mention of, if it's going to speak out, for example, when it's going to detect what it detects. Is it just visuals? Like, is it going to speak it out to people, of course, who can see, and low vision and blind users? So at the end of the day, the question will then be, will this be useful? Because I think putting together all its functionalities, I think it should be something that'll be really, really vital for someone who is blind or low visioned. But unfortunately, there is no mention, which is not surprising, to be honest, because most tech companies don't even mention it, even if they have it. So there is no mention on how this is going to even impact the blind community, which in truth should be even the primary focus of these, because if it's helping to do things or to detect things that your regular eye should see, which is expected that these things should also be able to communicate with the individual to help in communication, just in case someone is needing it for his day-to-day task, and not just as an aid, but as a primary tool to get around doing things that he or she won't normally do before. And that's just my worry, and I don't know, that's just my drawback majorly on it.
I mean, that's such a good point, Trust. And I also think about people who live in assisted living facilities. I mean, or people who own assisted living facilities, so if there is a tool, i.e. Astro, that can help, the people who give the care to do a better job of, connecting from a human dimension, and then Astro can do some of the other tasks, that would be another application or another market that they might want to consider.
Yeah. Carl in the DMs said the same. The assisted living facility element could be very interesting, and also the permanent live streaming folks, or people who like to make tons of videos on YouTube. I wonder how convenient this is to use as a something to record videos and publish them to YouTube with. It doesn't address that in this article in terms of using the camera to record video with the camera. It's a 5 megapixel camera. It might be.
This sounds like the dev kit thing, where it's like, we don't know what our product market fit is. Let's just basically put this out there and let some developers find it for us, and then we'll basically swoop in with our biz dev teams on the ones that actually end up making money.
I mean, that's how I feel it should. I think they're going. I mean, when Tyler said the dog thing, it instantly made me think that, there's going to be skills for this thing.
I'm wondering about, can this be helpful in a post-COVID work remote world where your boss wants to put one in your house, or you can tap into one at the office, or you can be remotely present at the office if the boss wants you there, and you just I've got.
Do you want your boss walking through your house?
Yeah, well, or conversely, can employees tap into this at the office?
No, if you could buy like 100 of them all through the office, and there's no longer people in there, just robots bumping into each other at periscope level as they like tip over each other, that could be very entertaining. We can put like little like paper cutouts of the people's faces on there for them to basically.
They will be like avatars walking around, like not the real people.
Yeah. Well, no, it'd have your face. People would see your face on the screen. And you could drive the thing around the office. I mean, that's what it says. You can control it remotely.
This is the future. This is essentially what the world has brought us to, where our jobs are to drive RC cars around in basically a little mazes and essentially over the internet so we can be productive at work.
But I like the command of like go to the meeting room in the office, and it goes to the meeting room, and then there's a meeting going on there. Could be interesting. Anyway.
Hey, Tyler,
Yes.
real quick, Chetna's in the audience, and I know she does a lot of HR work and hybrid, consulting. I think she would have an interesting point of view of this.
Okay, raise your hand there, Chetna. And then,
Tyler.
Yeah.
The Verge is saying Amazon Astro is terrible and will throw itself downstairs.
The what?
Amazon Astro is terrible and will throw itself downstairs.
What do you mean it's terrible?
I don't know. You check DM. You check your DM. It's reported by The Verge.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. So The Verge has I guess, is this a review, an early review? It says, the headline says, Amazon Astro is terrible and will throw itself downstairs. Developers reportedly claim. Documents about how it works have also leaked. Amazon disputes the claims. And
I called it.
Let's see here.
I said balconies, but stairs works too.
Some of the people building Amazon's Astro home robot are not impressed with it, according to a report by Vice. Well, the next article I was going to read was the article by Vice. So let's just go ahead and, rather than read Verge's take on Vice's article, let's read Vice's article, where its headline says, leaked documents show how Amazon's Astro robot tracks everything you do. And Astro's robot decision-making, the internal docs show how Amazon's Astro robot decision-making works. Sources who worked on versions of Astro describe it as a privacy nightmare and dangerous.
This is different from what they publicly said, where the data is processed locally. So if there's an internal group that's whistleblowing on this, saying they're lying with the marketing, that's really interesting, being concurrent with the marketing launch.
Never trust the marketing and PR.
Leaked meetings show the robot will heavily rely on facial recognition and user behavior, but sources who worked on Astro say the robot is flawed. Amazon's new robot called Astro is designed to track the behavior of everyone in your home to help it perform its surveillance and helper duties, according to leaked internal documents, development documents, and video recordings of Astro software development meetings obtained by Vice's tech publication called Motherboard. The system's person recognition system is heavily flawed, according to two sources who worked on the project. The documents, which largely use Astro's internal codename Vesta for the device, give extensive insight into the robot's design, Amazon's philosophy, how the device tracks customer behavior, as well as flowcharts of how it determines who a stranger is and whether it should take any sort of investigation activity against them. In its announcement video, Amazon says Astro is designed to give peace of mind to its owners. First and foremost, Astro is a surveillance device that tracks you and everyone who enters your home. When a user purchases the $1,000 robot, customers are asked to enroll their face and voice, as well as the faces and voices of anyone who is likely to be home, so Astro can learn who's supposed to be there. One of the internal documentation files presented in a development meeting and obtained by Motherboard describes how Astro patrols an owner's home and tries to identify people it encounters. Other files refer to quote-unquote Sentry, the components and software that control the device's security features. Sentry software includes an integration with Ring cameras and Alexa Guard, Amazon's home security service. The meeting document spells out the process in a much blunter way than Amazon's cutesy marketing suggests. Here's the quote. Vesta slowly and intelligently patrols the home when unfamiliar people are around, moving from scan port to scan point, the best location and pose in any given space to look around, looking and listening for unusual activity. One of the files reads, this is selling me on the product, actually. This is making me want to buy it. I don't know that this is having the intended consequence of scaring people away. Vesta moves to a predetermined scan point and pose to scan any given room, looking past and over obstacles in its way. Vesta completes one complete patrol when it completes scanning all the scan points on the floor plan. If the robot detects what it thinks is something out of the ordinary, such as seeing a person it doesn't recognize or a sound like glass breaking or a fire alarm, it will investigate further, including following an unidentified person around the house, the file reads. Great. Now I want to buy it. What are you doing here? You're forcing me to buy this thing. Sentry is required to investigate any unrecognized person detected by it or audio event in certain set of conditions are met, one file reads. Sentry should first try to identify the person if they are not still unrecognized for as long as 30 seconds. When the person is identified or unknown or 30 seconds pass, Sentry should start following the person until Sentry mode is turned off. A flowchart presented during the meetings explains exactly what happens when Astro detects the presence and how it is designed for investigating strangers. If a user has disabled stranger investigation, the robot will ignore a stranger. A user can tell the robot to start or stop a patrol either via a companion app or by saying a specific phrase out loud, such as Echo or Astro to start home monitoring, or Alexa, stop moving, or Alex.
Tyler,
Yes.
this could be really important for, old age people, your parents, and I mean, I'm thinking, all those kind of.
Here's let me get to the part where it says flawed. There's a whole subsection in this article that says flawed robot. Developers who worked on Astro say the versions of the robot they worked on did not work well. Well, that doesn't mean anything because that's not the version they're releasing. So, as a journal, we worked on a prototype of this thing and it didn't work. Yeah, well, I guess SpaceX engineers could say the same about the early versions of the rocket. What the fuck does that have to do with anything? Early versions never work. That's why they're called early versions. If it was the working version, then you would have worked on the released version. You didn't work on the... Of course early versions don't work. That's why they're early versions. Astro is terrible and will almost certainly throw itself down a flight of stairs if presented the opportunity. The person detection is unreliable at best, making the in-home security proposition laughable. A source who worked on the project said the device feels fragile for something... Well, by the way, they've told you to put it on the ground floor in the article we read.
Kind of like you park your Chevy Bolt essentially outdoors. If it explodes in your garage, then you weren't reading the manual.
A source who worked on the device feels fragile for something with an absurd cost.
It's not absurd. It's $1,000.
I don't think it's an absurd cost. Exactly. The mast has broken on several devices, locking itself in the extended or retracted position, and there's no way to ship it to Amazon when that happens. Right.
God.
Okay. They're also pushing it as an accessibility device, but with the masts breaking and the possibility that at any given moment it'll commit suicide on a flight of stairs, it's at best absurdist nonsense and marketing, and at worst potentially dangerous for anyone who'd actually rely on it for accessibility purposes, the source said. Another source who worked on the project mentioned privacy and navigation as chief concerns. Here's the quote. As for my personal opinion on the device, it's a disaster that's not ready for release. They break themselves and will almost certainly fall downstairs in real-world users' homes. In addition, it also, in my opinion, a privacy nightmare that is an indictment of our society and how we trade privacy for convenience with devices like Vesta. The source also corroborated that Astro's facial recognition abilities perform poorly, which is concerning for a device designed mainly to follow people around and determine if they're a stranger or not.
I've got a variation of this that could be interesting. They're targeting home market. What's going to happen when they do this in public spaces?
Right, so what I've gathered from this device, it's I think it's like another way for them to collect information as well for their marketing strategy. So while it's going around your house, it will obviously scan your environments and then get data, and then it will probably sell data to other companies for promoting products.
And local law
Law
enforcement as well.
Especially when the VR world comes into play, right? You have the ability to quickly use machine vision to spot things in your house. Like, oh, hey, we noticed your pancake mix is running low. Amazon's gonna.
We notice you have the wrong brand that needs to be rectified right now. We can make an index of essentially every single item in someone's home, whether or not essentially they've paid for it or not.
Quick question for me, yeah. So my worry is, can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So my worry is, so just like, for example, since it says it follows strangers around, so just like dogs, yeah. So for instance, when a stranger walking and dog barks, for a while the dog gets used to that stranger. So how long does this robot have to maybe learn this individual? For example, I'm having a new individual in my house going to stay for a while. Will it continue following the person like forever? Because I don't know, because there have to be more or less maybe a training mechanism to say, okay, you know what, this person is not a stranger. Don't identify the person as stranger, something of the sort. I don't know if that provision is made, because I don't know, you can't just keep following people all around. Like, it's, I don't know, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know.
It
I
seems
think
like
I think oh,
because
Ladies
it
first.
seems
Ladies first.
it seems like because they're asking the owners to do facial scans or upload pictures, that wouldn't be so much a problem. Yeah, fine, it's an inconvenience for your cousin who's visiting for a week, but that seems like a safe measure for um a use case like that.
With a dog, you would just make eye contact and touch the person, and the dog knows, okay, this guy's cool.
I mean, on the
Something to
flip
consider
side,
here is also the social context, where essentially there's individual privacy, which is how we typically frame these things about go into your privacy settings if something went wrong and we fucked with it since you were last touching it. But something that's increasingly becoming the case here is something to pay attention to. Is it's not whether or not you're making the decision on privacy, it's whether or not the people around you are. Whether or not essentially the communities you're in, essentially whether or not essentially your friends and neighbors when you're visiting their homes, what devices they basically have as domestic surveillance and which ones they don't, what essentially devices are set up on their front doors in your neighborhood or such like that. The collective effect is essentially that privacy is going to be increasingly becoming something that is not decided by the individual. And even if you wanted to be private, you can't. If you want to share everything, essentially, well, that's nice. But ultimately, the option is going to be much more determined by essentially the communities that you live in, which will be interesting to see if that's going to be something that people are going to intentionally do, or whether that's just going to be decided for them by corporations.
on the flip side of the privacy, which for like personally for myself, I would kind of consider that. But on the other end, I'm thinking about I've got a friend of mine right now that is, excuse me, not close to her mom. Her mom is very sick, and they can't have a nurse there 24 hours, to monitor the mom. So I'm just kind of looking for the people that are maybe on the, they're away from their parents or grandparents, and it's some kind of a robot that can monitor the system, find out if she's walking, find out if she's fallen and she can't, as the old commercial, can't get up, or even monitor her her system as she's sleeping. And even if you give, for instance, if you give access to certain people to go ahead and communicate through the robot without having to telephone, you'd have to answer it, or call someone. But if you give access to certain people, so I could actually, if it's my mom, I could actually just go ahead and have access to call her or speak with her and see if she's awake, or just have that bit of a communication between them without having the person having to answer someone. So I think it could have the potential of giving some comfort to people that are, maybe the older generations, or like you said, the different the older homes. So on that flip side, I think it could be great, and if they can, soften it up a bit and have it kind of be seen as a as an added company to the person. So on that side, I think I'm looking at it, and for that price, if it's 1,000 now, and of course, obviously they're going to just keep tweaking it and making it better and better. I think it's got some good potential.
Okay. I'm just taking a peek at the.
So on
Go ahead.
on what is it or something that just commented, the question I've always also wanted to ask, I forgot, was, is there any situation where it gives maybe a hazard alarm or contacts relative, or there's an emergency contact, like when an emergency happens, so there's an emergency contact immediately on speed dial, something of the sort, that okay, when, for example, when there is maybe a fire outbreak, or maybe your mom isn't feeling well or something of the sort, the robot calls an emergency contact, and immediately the person picks. There is a situation where the video, they can show the video from the end. I don't know if there's that feature yet, but if there is none, I think this is just one of those technology that necessarily is not as important if we can't, if there is no that hazard side, or emergency contact situation and all of those like stuff.
Trust. To Nada's point, though, I think this is a healthcare and security play, not a consumer play, in my opinion. And so it's integrated with Ring. It's got decision probability theories because it said decision on board. In order to do that, you're going to give up privacy because something needs to think and concern. Regarding tracking communities, you could turn it on and off. But to a point someone else said, I mean, that depends on whose house you're going to and do they keep it on and do they, acknowledge you that they have security cameras. But it's the same thing with if you go in certain people's homes, they have complete onboard securities. This has been around for years. If you go in certain, some very significant people's homes, they have online security that will watch you no matter what, and they've got people watching you. So I think there's always that trade-off. And I think what they're really trying to do, Amazon's rolling this out like a consumer play or this little robot, but they're really going after that healthcare and security market, which is intriguing because with Ring, it can call the authorities, the local authorities, and all those other things.
Yeah. I'm just tweeting out all the links. There's a whole lot of discussions about this one, about the privacy of how it can connect with Ring and the Ring cloud and video clips of inside your house. And if it has object detection, which it certainly can do, that can be happening in the back end where everyone's joking about, it can recognize what furniture you have or what what products you might be missing, and it could recommend or what. Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
I don't know if I'm being paranoid, but I've just had surveillance cameras pop up on my Facebook page. Just as soon as I think it's because I started talking about this topic.
Your Alexa is plugged in.
Yeah.
Okay, next article, number 2, Wall Street Journal. Oh boy. About Facebook internal docs. Oh boy, they're back at it again. For those who don't know, Wall Street Journal is on a campaign they call the Facebook Files, where they're leaking internal documents, and one hit piece after another. And again, and this is interesting, is it not? Worth noting that the Astro robot, the Alexa thing that we've been talking about, the biggest news item of the day, it gets launched. The moment of its launch, there's already former workers on it leaking internal information in its sort of, hit piece is coming out simultaneously about this. And this is a big tech company with big tech employees, in this case, probably former employees, because they've been working on this thing for at least a year, probably 2 or 3. And people who used to work on the team are coming out, disgruntled, leaking to journalists.
It's probably some of that unregretted attrition and people, the ones that are guaranteed to be fired after they're hired type kind of folk.
So my point is, I feel like this is going to become a really normal thing going forward. It's not unprecedented, but boy, it feels like we're going to go into a new era of every disgruntled employee is going to start going to press very quickly, and press are going to start any new product that comes out, press are going to look for current and former employees who worked on it to really give their impression of what's really, the hot take on this, because there's some juicy clicks right there. So,
but Tyler, like they say this to startup founders is like, 900 people are going to tell you no, and when you actually make it, they're going to say that they all were rooting for you the whole time, and that's how everyone just wants to be negative about everything right now. It seems to be, I'm hoping we can flip it around, but listen to the vitriol and everything. That thing's going to run down the stairs, and look, the stupid mast sticks up so you can never return it, and it's like, come on, man, give things a chance, and it's just it's kind of a sad state of how how things are. No wonder there's no progress.
So the next article is the Wall Street Journal. They say they have internal documents, as that's the whole Facebook Files thing. So this would be number 7, if I'm counting correctly, of Jeff Horowitz leaking internal documents with somebody on the inside who says they will reveal themselves. And indeed, this one is by Georgia Wells and Jeff Horowitz. Facebook was exploring play dates as a growth lever, including engaging tweens as they hung out together. Facebook's effort to attract preteens goes beyond Instagram Kids, documents show. It has investigated how to engage young users in response to competition from Snapchat and TikTok, exploring playdates as a growth lever. Facebook has come under increasing fire in recent days for its efforts or its effect on young users and its efforts to create products for them. Inside the company, teams of employees have for years been laying plans to attract preteens that go beyond what is publicly known. Well, I think that's freaking obvious, isn't that? That's common sense. Spurred by fear that Facebook could lose a new generation of users critical to its future. Yeah, and 2 + 2 = 4. This is hardly news. Internal Facebook documents reviewed by the Wall Street Journal show the company formed a team to study preteens. I gotta say, so far, this is hardly surprising. This is not even newsworthy. Facebook is trying to get young users.
It's important, though, if they're representing something to Congress in one way or the other with stuff, because if these sorts of things shape essentially the ways that those discussions can go. So this is view it less in light of like this specific article and view it more in the context of the conversation they're trying to shape. Yeah, this is like laying down arguments in advance for the actual regulatory stuff that comes later.
Yeah, but TikTok is well known that there's tons of young folks on TikTok and Snapchat. So if you don't think Facebook was doing this, you're an idiot. So if you're finding this, what I've read so far, interesting at all, please leave the room. You're stupid. This is just common sense, like of the highest order. This is like air is blue, and I mean, I can't think of a more obvious revelation. So anyway, let's see if it gets more juicy here. It says, internal Facebook documents viewed by the Wall Street Journal. They formed a team in one presentation. Wait, here it is. The Wall Street Journal show the company formed a team to study preteens, set a 3-year goal to create more products for them, and commissioned strategy papers about the long-term business opportunities presented by these potential users. In one presentation, it contemplated whether there might be a way to engage children during playdates. Okay, yeah, one person in a company of 1 billion people had an idea about playdates, and they put it on a piece of paper and shared it with their teammates. Okay, yeah, fair. They probably had 1,000 other ideas too. Why do we care about tweens, says one document from 2020. They are a valuable but untapped audience. Yep, indeed they are. Facebook isn't the only technology company to court children and face scrutiny for doing so. Virtually every major social media platform, including ByteDance's TikTok and YouTube, have confronted legal or regulatory problems related to how children use its products. Federal privacy law forbids data collection on children under 13, and lawmakers have criticized tech companies for not doing more to protect kids online from predators and harmful content. The Facebook documents show that competition from rivals, including Snapchat and TikTok, is a motivating factor behind its work. Can you please tell me something that isn't wildly fucking obvious, Wall Street Journal? If this is the best you have, what's the dude's name? Jeff Horowitz? This is your 6th or 7th piece here in this Facebook files. This is a nothing burger, my friend. If this is the best you have, then Facebook should jump up and down and do a bunch of hallelujahs, because this is nothing. This means nothing.
Tyler, could somebody explain on the room maybe why 13 is a cutoff? Because I'm thinking 13 isn't the cutoff for anything else. You can't even. I don't think you could even deliver newspapers in a lot of jurisdictions at 13. So why is it okay to collect data on 13-year-olds?
I think Ken is promiscuous, historically going back, in my opinion, and that's probably because of my exposure of growing up. But bar mitzvah in the Jewish culture is cut off at 13.
I'm Jewish, but I can't imagine that's the reason. And I'm Jewish, and I think that's the reason.
I actually know why.
Go ahead.
The thing is that this was a regulation that were sketched on a napkin regarding how to regulate advertisements to children in the 70s. and this was in the comic books, etc. How can we, what kind of advertisement can we put in the comic books? Because that's what the media that most of the kids were looking at. This is even before TV became a really big thing with advertisement there. So they actually, in the United States, concluded that, okay, we are not going to allow subliminal advertisement. You know, that's screwed already. But they also set the level that, okay, kids under 13, we can't aim they for target them for advertisement in an advanced manner. And so this is actually, this is not a law anywhere. It has become a regulation sort of, but there is no hard writing on the actual number. And so when the advertisement networks in the form of Google and the other big gangs now came to the conclusion, okay, we want to mine data. Okay, how do we not regulate this? Okay, we point on the ad things from the 70s and say we are going to comply with that, so we don't get regulated harder or in another manner. And the reason I know this was that I needed to dive into this in another project that I'm working with. Johan, done speaking.
Okay.
But Yuan, why? I'm sorry. Why not 12 or 14 though? Why 13? That's, I guess, what Ken was asking.
The thing is that why it's 13, I don't know that, but it is from the newspapers and the comics, and there was no major amount of advertisements in television at that time, but there were radios, and they all of them said that we are not going to do below 13. 13 is the limit. And I don't know when do you split from high school to senior in the US? I have no idea.
No, I think in the U.S. I was thinking about that. It could be like middle school, depending whether you go to middle school or junior high school. It's around that age, so it could be just about the start of of the middle school or the junior high school before high school. So it's like because that's usually like trying to remember when I did it. So that would be like age. I think I started junior high school at age 12, so it was like ages 12, 13, and 14 were junior high school. And then some people don't start until age 13 if they go to a middle school, I think. So, that could be it.
That's probably it then. So this is a soft regulation that have been implemented by the data miners today to not get regulated. There is no law, there is no strong things pointing to that age, but all do it because they don't want to have a law slammed in the face.
I think we need. I think we need new regulations because there's a difference between a 13-year-old seeing an ad for like Stratomatic baseball versus the stuff that goes on social media today. I mean, it's like two completely different worlds, But that's my opinion.
But I think that speaking on the age of 13, I think that also speaks to the heart of questioning the arbitrary nature of placing ages. I think on things, for example, you begin to ask why was it 18 in most countries? That was the age of consent and all of those stuff. So I just think that it's a situation
Oh,
of
that's easy to explain. The reason is
but
it's roughly 18 is roughly the age of conscription. So in the United States, for example, because of the Vietnam War, we passed the constitutional amendment because we had 18 to 21-year-olds who were not allowed to vote because of their age, and people said, "Wait a second, you're old enough to die in a war and get drafted. You should be able to vote." So we amended the U.S. Constitution to allow voting at age 18. Unfortunately, since that time, because that cohort doesn't vote, the politicians don't care about them, and they continue passing laws now requiring you to be 21, 21 to be at a casino.
I'll be right back.
Now, 21 to even buy cigarettes. So that's a whole different political issue. We should skip that because this is not this room. So.
Okay. Tyler is away for a bit. Anyone have any burning news you want to bring up?
Oh, so we could have actually.
Hey, Cheryl, I do actually.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know what it is. I just got an alert on my phone right now for anyone in the Los Angeles area. It says on my Twitter for earthquake prediction, they said 15-hour warning, 6.7 to 7.2 earthquake is likely in the Los Angeles area, either late on 9/28/21 or 9/29/21, most likely northwest of Los Angeles. So I don't know how,
Is that
Wait,
close
you
from
this
a
said
is.
reliable
for
source?
for the end of this? I'm sorry, for the end of the week. You're talking about the next 3 days or the next
As,
2 days?
as in tonight or tomorrow morning, from what I'm seeing here.
I'm in
Oh,
Orange County. I haven't
Goodbye.
gotten that. So
good
interesting.
luck, Chris.
Check out on Twitter. Go to
Yeah,
earthquake
go to Neda's
prediction.
Twitter.
Check out, yeah, on earthquake prediction. I just got this alert, so anyone in that area, if there's any precautions, I hope that it doesn't come to fruition. But just, I just got this 15-hour warning.
Well, I'll
Okay,
tap
thank
into
you.
UC's Berkeley, by the way, and see if there's anything. If anything's there, Cheryl, I'll ping you or Tyler or someone if I see
I'll
something
be
on the
Okay,
research
thank
because
you.
they can
I'll
study
be
that.
I'll be
I
up all night then.
I put this in. I put this on
Okay,
my
Chris.
Twitter. If you guys want to retweet
So
it,
by the
3
way,
days.
there was just an earthquake in Westmoreland, which even though I'm from that area, I don't even know where that exactly is. It looks like it's well south of Los Angeles, but it says magnitude 3.0 that occurred at
That's
10:53
okay.
Pacific time. What?
That sounds okay because
That
the
is
one
okay.
that
Three
Neda
is
just mentioned sounds bigger.
I'll
One,
install the I'll
You know
install
what, Ken?
LA County has a quake alert app, and it gives you about a 35-second warning before a big one.
Yeah,
So I'll
Ken.
start to install that.
Yeah, I say it's okay because I live in Tokyo, so earthquake is like our everyday life.
Yeah,
I,
Cheryl, you
if it's
don't
a
have.
if it's
Yeah,
a
the problem is
It's our
7.2.
normal.
like in Japan, things are
Uh
much
huh.
smaller in Japan than so it's
Ah,
you don't
that
have
makes
real
sense.
earthquakes you like California does.
What?
Yeah.
Tyler,
Oh, they do.
We are
I
sitting
tweeted
on
it,
the
and
Pacific Ring of Fire.
Yes,
Okay, go ahead.
you have. I lived there for many years. I experienced
Yeah.
hundreds of them. Those are not real earthquakes. What California has are real earthquakes.
so
so
Tyler, I put
so
your name
so
in
a
There
there.
week
should
So
be
ago
check it
there
out
was
on
a
Twitter.
4.4 in
Cheryl.
Carson.
By the way, Jinxing and earthquake. Those should be two total. Those aren't the same thing.
Jishing,
Yes,
not Jishing.
right.
Jishing.
That's not. They're totally different. What Tokyo has and what California has are two totally different things.
Do you know that Ginza was destroyed by a big earthquake before, and they're saying that very soon Tokyo is going to have another big earthquake
Yeah,
soon. So touch wood, touch wood. I don't want it to happen, but please don't say things too fast, okay?
yeah,
It's just that because we have regular small earthquake, so that the pressure is released,
correct.
which is good. So we are okay with that.
Yeah,
So we are comfortable with small
right.
earthquake. Yeah. So
So
it's not an
the
alarming
thing
thing for us.
so the thing is so Ring of Fire, right? California's on a plate to plate. We're
Mhm.
going northwest.
Mhm.
So the beach area is moving up towards San Francisco.
Mhm.
The big earthquake
Mhm.
that everyone's afraid of is up
Mhm.
near the Pacific Northwest. That's a subduction quake where
Mhm.
two plates come in and crash on each other.
Mhm.
Japan, like seismologically, it's not going to be there in like a couple million years because those are where three sections I think come in and
Mhm.
it goes under Japan, and
Mhm.
so basically like the plates are going to eat up Japan at some point, and so it's crazy. We're just riding this rock, so there's
I
nothing
know.
we can do.
Yeah, but
And
anyway, look at
thanks for
Neda's
that warning.
Twitter
Who was
account.
that?
Yeah,
Who was that warning from? Thank you,
Neda.
Nada. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's Tyler. I put it on Twitter, and I shared it with you just in case you want to show other
Yep.
people.
Yeah, the one that you mentioned is pretty large. So just
And
yeah,
and, and Eli's down there too, and I know he's in the
I think
valley, so
What's
I'm
yeah,
the
I think
curious
expected?
about
What's
the
the expected magnitude?
it's pretty. Is
six
what
to
Six
seven.
6
point
point something?
seven,
6-7.
to seven
Six,
point two,
seven. Oh fuck.
Yeah,
7.2.
6 7 is
Correct.
huge. Yeah,
6, 7 could likely demolish Los Angeles or San Francisco.
if it's not earthquake
And it's also, oh,
resistant.
sorry. It's
Go ahead.
also, what's that thing called when it's the difference in California being that it triggers all the neighboring plates apart from being on this lateral strike? I can't remember the official name, but
Hmm.
that's why it can
Okay,
become such a huge magnitude.
so go
Yeah.
buy
So
earthquake
hope.
insurance quick. You've got a few hours.
Go hiding.
So
No.
this the
Also, sorry for the Californians. Here's the thing about that earthquake insurance. If your house catches on fire because your neighbor's house caught on fire from an earthquake, you're not covered. Get that stuff.
So the back to the Wall Street Journal Facebook file Nothing Burger article about heaven forbid Facebook's trying to figure out how to get kids to use Facebook. The bigger story is that Facebook has already responded with a very cogent response, with which Michelle has DM'd me the link to, and Facebook says, again, it took them several days to respond to one of the previous Facebook files about, and now this one, lickety split. But as I said, they need to be very expeditious and expedient in responding to these articles with the facts, with the receipts. And this time they have very quickly, as they should do. And here it is. And the headline says, from Facebook, explaining the research we do to support families. As the Journal reported 4 years ago, Facebook introduced Messenger Kids. So they've had Facebook Messenger Kids for 4 years. Yeah, we've been making apps for kids for years. is there a brilliant first response? And just like others in the space, we are interested in understanding the next generation. So effing what? It's been previously reported that Facebook believes parents should have safer and age-appropriate options for their children, and that we conduct research to make sure our products are as safe as possible. Yeah, your reporting's correct. We're very proactively trying to build safe products for kids. Kids under 13 are prohibited on Instagram and Facebook, and our systems remove these accounts when we find them, 600,000 on Instagram in the last 3 months alone. The Journal cites an internal slide with age breakdowns without noting that the same age taxonomy is used by the age-appropriate design code and policymakers to understand how to appropriately design products for use. Today, the Wall Street Journal, again, questioned our motives in carrying out research into young people's social media use. This is nothing more than an attempt to recycle previous reporting. As the Journal itself reported 4 years ago, we've had a product in the market in the form of Messenger Kids that is intended for young users. We developed it with input from parents to make sure that it provides a safe experience for younger kids that is supervised and controlled by parents. There is nothing nefarious or secretive about this work. The article featured an image of an internal slide that is attention-grabbing because it's presented with no context. In actuality, it's simply a framework that international policymakers have been advocating we use. These are age bands used by the Age-Appropriate Design Code and other policy experts. The Where We're Going title reflects industry and policymakers' moves towards this taxonomy, not Facebook's product plans, as the internal notes context make clear. Companies that operate in highly competitive space, including the Wall Street Journal, make efforts to appeal to younger generations. Considering that our competitors are doing the same thing, it would actually be newsworthy if Facebook didn't do this work. Well said. The Journal, that's exactly brilliantly stated. It would be, the bigger headline would be, Facebook is absolutely doing nothing at all ever that's a great comment, great comeback. The Journal also lifts a phrase from an internal presentation titled Exploring Playdates as a Growth Lever. Unfortunately, the language we used as an insensitive way to pose a serious question and doesn't reflect our approach to building the app. It was part of a research to better understand how families and kids were using the Messenger Kids app to improve their experience with it. We built Messenger Kids to create a safer parent-managed experience for kids, and as we have heard from parents worldwide, virtual playdates on Messenger Kids have become a lifeline for many families during the pandemic. We want to keep young kids safe on our app, and that includes making sure those who aren't old enough to be using them don't. We'll continue investing in research to make sure we do this work even more effectively. Facebook wins this round. Where's my boxing bell? There it is. That round goes to Facebook. Wall Street Journal, you lost that round. Now you look shady, Wall Street Journal. You see what you did there? You're trying to, and you can, and you did. Last week, you released 6 articles. That made Facebook look pretty bad. And now Facebook just punched you in the mouth and you look shady. You see what's going on here, Wall Street Journal? Let's see how you do in the next round, Wall Street Journal. But it's not looking good, because if you've got internal documents, the idea is you release the good ones. And I see what you did. You released some good ones, and now you're releasing ones that imply, well, let's let's paint Facebook as very untrustworthy, and now they're going after your kids. So I think you intentionally saved this one chronologically later, because it's weaker. If you got better articles, you better come out with them quick, because normally you don't, you save your weak ones for last. So if this is a weak one, is this your last one? Let's see what you got. You said you got more. Let's see these other internal documents. But you're starting to seem getting a little desperate, little thirsty, little click thirsty, stretching things out a little bit. I'm curious to see your next one there, Wall Street Journal, because that one came back to bite you in the ass. The people who do the homework and do the research to any degree are going to find out. You're going to start digging your own grave with this series if you continue on this path. So, next one, shall we get into? Oh, well, there's a related one, also from the Wall Street Journal. It's about CNN. CNN restricts access to its Facebook pages in Australia. Does anyone know why? Let's see how smart the people on stage are. Why is CNN restricting access to its Facebook pages in Australia?
Because I think the Australians were charging per click, right? That they passed that law that you were discussing last time?
You're so warm. You're warm, but not quite there.
Okay.
Close. There was a headline very recently that Australia also, in addition to that, is also now publications are responsible for the comments on their articles. So any crazy idiot, any jackass who says anything stupid as a reply to your post, you're responsible for. You can be sued.
Tyler, you had said that this is going to happen. I remember that.
Well, the point is, CNN is like, oh, we're legally responsible for every fucking jackass we went to high school with making stupid comments on our articles in Australia, and we can be sued? Great. Shut that shit down. Shut it down. And I said, you're going to have to shut it down because they don't want to play that crazy game. They don't want to expose themselves to lawsuits. They're now responsible. And, kudos to Rupert Murdoch for making, life uncomfortable.
Like Australia is stricter than Singapore.
Yeah, Australia's getting a little
very strict.
Getting a little interesting these days down there. So anyway, the next one is from VentureBeat, Dean Takahashi, who's actually been a good tech journalist for very many years. So anyway, he's written an article that says Netflix acquires its first game studio. Oh, here we go, Netflix. You hear that sound? Did you hear a sound? That's the sound of Netflix realizing that the future, now that the video streaming, movies and TV show battle is pretty mature, pretty much locked in. Everyone who's going to sign up for a streaming service is pretty much signed up for a streaming service. Some signed up for Netflix, some did Disney Plus, some did, the other ones. But the low hanging fruit has been picked off of that tree, and now they're going into other markets internationally. But in the US, it gets a little expensive to try and, pay to acquire new users rather than just suck up all the users who hadn't figured out which streaming service they want to pay for yet. And now they got to diversify. And now they're diversifying into video games, which is a brilliant diversification to get into. So Netflix now acquires a game studio. Notice that Amazon that acquired a movie studio. Was it MGM, if I recall correctly? About 3 months ago?
Bond.
Huh?
Yes, MGM, but it hasn't closed yet.
Right.
Subject to FTC approval.
Right. So now these streaming platforms are acquiring movie studios and game studios, the makers of the content, and bundling it in with their subscribers because they got the subscribers. That's the money. The money's coming into the platforms. Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, all the platforms collect the money. They're in a battle to keep those customers happy and paying their monthly subscriptions. So they need to continue to add more content, which means they need to acquire more content producers, which means film studios and game studios. And that's great news for game studios. They've got these massive platforms that are going to start acquiring them. So Netflix acquires its first game studio called Night School Studio, which was founded by Sean Krinkle and Adam Hines in 2014 and is best known for the game Oxenfree. Netflix acquired the game studio, and the purchase price wasn't disclosed.
Hey Tyler, I understand that Netflix has made a statement as of today on the games that they're not going to have, believe it or not, in-app purchases. They're not. It's basically you're just going to buy the game, and there's
Right.
there's not going to be any. Yeah.
Yeah, but
they say that now.
Yeah.
And no advertising, they said also. That was the other thing.
Everyone says no advertising when they start. Everyone says no microtransactions when they start.
No,
you see how lucrative it can be.
Chris, you may not be right on this because, my friends who cover these companies, who cover Netflix on Wall Street, okay, they're the ones who told me about it. And they said, look, if you look at the history of Netflix, they remade the movie industry by doing things everyone says you can't do. They have no ads on their platform now, okay? It's basically an all you can eat. They don't do this premium thing for the better movies, and they don't charge you $30 extra like Disney. I mean, they have a different view of the world. I mean, and part of it is just to maybe to be the biggest. So I mean, I'm not necessarily so sure that this is like a tease. I mean, if you look at the way that so.
When times are good, essentially technologists will run a company a certain way. Netflix is very unique in that CEO basically has expertise in AI, as does their entire VP board. It's actually very unusual for basically having that many executives that have a deep understanding of the technology at the highest levels. So that is not the thing that they will start off to do. What I'm basically saying is that if essentially right now they're hitting very mature market, this is good with things. Life is things. Disney didn't entirely knock their socks off with things. They have a good competition. It's a healthy market. Life is good. If they get into a tough spot, those Wall Street groups that are basically saying we want to essentially see continuous growth, we'd like to see quarterly returns increasing, those conversations are going to shift again, the same way that the cable industry said, originally was something you purchase, and essentially it's like it's.
Yeah, you're making a major assumption. Okay, what I'm saying is, they believe based on their history that this is not like some short term 3 months and then we'll start doing in-game apps. This is hopefully they think the way that they want to kind of run their business in a normal sense, and they definitely did things differently to get where they are. And so I mean I think it's a fair point. I mean they might change their minds. But I just wanted to make the point. They came out the door saying we're not going to do in-app purchases and we're not doing advertising, and that fundamentally makes them different than a lot of game companies right now. It does.
So let me read their.
They've got room to maneuver.
Yeah, we're in the early stages of creating a great gaming experience for our members around the world. So we're excited to announce today Night School Studio is joining Netflix. We'll continue working with developers around the world and hiring the best talent in the industry to deliver a great collection of exclusive games designed for every kind of gamer and every level of play. Like our shows and films, these games will all be included as part of your Netflix membership, all with no ads and no in-app purchases. Stay tuned for more. Here it comes. It's going to be a massive battle between these big platforms now. Now all the other platforms are like, shit, we got to go buy video games. Let's go. Everyone's going to be every video game studio on the planet is now receiving meeting requests, and the valuations of those video game studios just went up. So life's good if you're a video game studio right now, because every streaming platform now knows they need to get into the video game space to compete with Netflix. It's going to be very interesting. So the next.
Hey Tyler, speaking of streaming services, so because everyone's got their own issues, and you and I have privately, I've sent you stuff before on YouTube TV, which by the way is now surpassed Hulu with the most subscribers in terms of the largest virtual MPVD, and they're in a dispute right now with NBC, where they don't want to pay what NBC wants for for NBC, the regional sports networks, Bravo, and also Peacock. So which is their streaming service, right? Because their streaming service, Peacock, is mostly stuff they've given away cheap or for free. So it's not getting a kind of attraction that Disney did. So they tried to force YouTube to say, hey, we won't give you anything with NBC unless you basically take this Peacock streaming service. They finally they backed off that, but I think the deadline is Thursday. If they don't reach a deal, NBC is going to pull all of its stations off YouTube TV. YouTube TV said, "Well, we'll lower our price per month, our monthly price by $10 to our customers if we do that." And they did something that no cable or satellite company has ever done when they get into essentially a retransmission dispute. They basically told their subscribers, "We understand if you want to pause your service or you want to leave. We perfectly understand if this happens. What we're going to do for you is we're going to save all your settings and all your videos that you have, so that when you come back, it will be the same. You don't have to start over again." Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So every streaming service is in a different situation. So I just wanted to point it out because you talked about the streaming services.
Yeah, but make no mistake, these streaming platforms are they've got this huge millions of dollars coming in every month consistently. That's an incredibly powerful position to be in.
I would bet you Peacock is probably losing money right now. The NBC streaming is probably losing money.
Fine, but they're losing money because they're in a desperate race to lock in all of the battle, acquire the battlefield, pick all the fruit off the tree.
Right, and they're coming from behind, So
they had a late start for sure.
And it wasn't for lack of people advising them, saying you need to move in a certain direction. They ignored us for many years until they've obviously lost the markets and it's closing up. Just as a side note with things, I was just thinking back. Remember Quickster back in the day with things? Netflix is disastrous. Hey, let's basically launch in a certain direction, and they didn't quite communicate that well, and they were hemorrhaging subscribers because they wanted to basically say the mail service business for our DVDs is not going anywhere. We need to move all online. Everyone was saying no, we're not ready to go. It's pretty insane to see how much they've accomplished over the last decade, essentially, considering that was just where they were just even a short bit ago.
Okay, so next up we've got, this is a juicy one. Microsoft opens the Windows App Store to third-party app stores. That's big because this is what everyone's wanting Apple and Google to do with their app stores, which is, or their platforms. So Microsoft has a platform called Windows. You've probably heard of this thing. Windows has an app store, their own, called the Windows App Store. Windows is also going to allow other app stores. And this is Microsoft sticking a knife into the throat of Apple and Google, because the governments around the planet, all the big developers around the planet are like, hey, Apple, hey, Google, stop being greedy fuckers and let us have our app store on your platform. We want to make the Amazon App Store on the iPhone. We want to make an Amazon App Store on the Android phone. Why is there only one app store on your devices, right? Windows jumps in. Hey, everybody, you can open an app store on Windows. And Apple and Google are like, you son of a bitch. Microsoft, look at the timing of you doing this. You're trying to kill us. What are you trying to do? You trying to get us killed over here? The timing of this is brutal for Apple and Google, while the governments are trying to decide, should they force Apple and Google to allow other app stores? And Windows like, yep, right over here, everybody. Come and open your app store right over here, everybody. Oh,
it's worth noting that they don't actually make that much money on their existing thing, because the engagement, if you don't have it forced on them, and essentially, Microsoft has had that app store for almost a decade now. And the thing is, almost no one uses it because you can just go to as many websites and
but Chris, here comes Samsung, like Tyler covered with Korea. Just watch them roll right over there so quickly, I think.
So
the thing is, sorry, go
Amazon and check out who's opening app stores on Microsoft as part of this announcement. Amazon, who's the other big tech company that would love to see Google and Apple eat up a pie full of shit, and Epic Games, who's who's leading the big lawsuit against Apple and Google on precisely this issue.
Now that's more interesting.
Yes, Amazon and Epic Games will add the first storefront apps in the coming months. Amazon and Epic Games Store will be the first to integrate with Microsoft Store. Microsoft is opening up its own app store in Windows even further today. Oh boy, Google and Apple lawyers are waking up today thinking of resigning because they're realizing the government folks who are debating all of this are like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, so yeah, Microsoft's done it. Why can't you do it again, Apple and Google? And Apple and Google lawyers are literally writing the resignation letters as we discuss this. Go ahead.
But Tyler, I mean, you can always sideload apps on a PC. You can always sideload apps on a Mac. You know, I mean,
right. This is Microsoft is basically the point I was trying to make earlier is that essentially Microsoft has a long track record of basically whenever they want to say a product is successful or it's used by X number of people, the way they do that is they basically force the usage of it is putting it prominently there on the start menu, advertising your own stuff kind of thing.
I think, though, I'm sorry, Chris. I think this is mobile, though. I think we're missing the point. This is pure, in my opinion, in my mind, it's just pure mobile play. And so Epic going there, this was all a mobile, because mobile is that future with everything else in gaming and or let's say wearables and devices, which are also mobile. And so if you look at Samsung's fight with 5G or 6G, I think you're in a mobile race. That's all I want to say.
Tim, the CEO of Epic Games, took to Twitter to say the Epic Games Store is coming because they have a whole bunch of games like Call of Duty. They have tons of games. So all their games could be in their own store on Windows. The Epic Games Store is coming to Windows. Microsoft is, again, leading the industry forward with Windows, now an open platform with an open store.
It's worth noting that they got into a fist fight with Steam and Valve, essentially, not a short bit ago. It would have been 8 years ago? Because essentially what they were going to do is they're going to lock down essentially the entire platform, very much like the other tech giants have successfully done with walled garden aspects. They're going to basically lock the bootloader in a certain way that would basically allow it where they could basically approve or disapprove apps. They ended up basically backing off from that a bit, but they still left a lot of the technical infrastructure and occasionally malfunctions and disables all the Oculuses of the world with oops, didn't renew your security certificate. But the reason I bring it up is that essentially Epic Games moving into this space, this is something that those discussions were had a while ago. Microsoft was one of the earlier ones, and they decided they didn't want to go into that space. So now that they're going into it, it's very much with essentially the competitors to essentially the last group that gave them a lot of headache. And the fact is they have not been competent at being able to execute at this in the past. But maybe by opening this up to other groups, essentially, that can execute more effectively, maybe they'll be able to get over their internal, essentially, factional type of conflicts that prevent that smooth integration from working. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it plays.
Okay. Next up is all of the Amazon announcements. As we promised, they had an event about 15 hours ago where they made a whole bunch of product announcements, including, starting with Amazon's Blink. Announces a $50 Blink video doorbell with Alexa integration. That sounds pretty cool. 1080p video more and a $130 solar-powered camera bundle. That's kind of cool too. And a $140 floodlight cam. So now they're getting reasonable with this stuff. And Alexa-powered and solar-powered. It's all very cool. Amazon announces a $60 smart thermostat in partnership with Honeywell, with pre-order starting today. And that's clearly a shot at Google Nest, the smart thermostat. So now Amazon wants to have their smart thermostat.
Honeywell has had near complete lock on the market, so partnering with them, essentially, they're very much aiming at essentially the home installation market with existing customer bases. So when they upgrade, you're just going to get that by default, which is a kind of a big deal because what that means is that there's a limited number of providers. If they can basically have that for the installation market there, that means eventually the default is going to be one of the providers you're getting is just going to mean data is going out from one provider or another. So the number of consumer choices that have is going to be much more focused in the near future.
So the next one, Amazon unveils a $250 Ring Alarm Pro with a built-in Arrow network package delivery alerts. So you get alerted when your package arrives, and an optional virtual security guard subscription. What is a virtual security guard? Not the little robot. What does it say here?
This is life.
It will be, Tyler. It will be that little robot in the future.
Can we just put death drones on there and just be done with it?
Life in 2021 is, sorry, real quick, Tyler. Life in 2021 is you work hard, you spend all your money at Amazon, your shit gets stolen, you spend money on Amazon to make sure your shit doesn't get stolen. It still gets stolen. You got to hire security guards to make your shit doesn't get stolen. Welcome to 2021.
Okay, so here's the bit on the virtual security guard. It says, not to be confused with its new pro tier subscription, which is offered alongside its existing $10 a month option, is a new separate subscription service called Virtual Security Guard that aims to replicate the benefits of having an on-site security guard. Basically, this adds an additional level of scrutiny in terms of professional monitoring through a partnership with monitoring company Rapid Response. Rapid Response personnel will keep an eye on the Ring camera and doorbell feeds you specify if you're a member, responding to motion alerts and providing interventions, including triggering sirens and lights, using a two-way talk feature, and even escalating to actually dispatching emergency services should they judge that it's required. Ring is quick to point out the ways in which Virtual Security Guard remains wholly within the control of the individuals subscribing. Cameras are opted out by default, for instance, so that a user selects which will be monitored and when. Agents also can't activate the camera unless they're green lighted to be monitored in their home or away mode as specified by the user. They can only see real-time videos via live view when a motion event is detected, and videos are not saved or downloaded or any other used by the agents. Finally, any privacy zones set up by a user are hidden for monitoring agents. So they've anticipated every possibility by which these security humans should not be able to have look into your property and whatnot. There's no word on specific pricing on this feature, but it sounds like it's going to be a premium since it requires that a user have a professional monitoring plan in place already. They also have to have an outdoor hardwired video doorbell or security cam for Ring in place in order to use the program, and it's going to be available on an invite-only basis starting later this year. There's more, by the way. There's a whole lot more, actually. For example, there's a drone. Amazon, well, this was demonstrated and promoted a year ago, but apparently now they're getting ready to do an invite-only program for its previously announced $250 home surveillance drone, the Always Home Cam. It's called. Ring's $250 Always Home Cam is real and ready to fly into your living room. First announced at last year's Amazon hardware event, so exactly a year ago, the Ring Always Home Cam is now ready for takeoff. No pun intended, or really, very terrible pun intended. So it's a little drone that zooms around your house. And the invite-only program, which is a recent trend with Amazon products, is a way to attract the right type of customers to the product at this stage. And which, by the way, because you could put, as we saw, there was already people shit-talking the robot that just came out. Tesla does the same. Tesla and Amazon very intelligently understand there's a whole bunch of people out there just ready to tear this thing to bits. Journalists, notably, and competitors and all kinds of people who have bones to pick. Former Amazon employees would buy this and then start ranting about it on Twitter and everything else, and they want to avoid a whole lot of negative backlash. Hence, invite-only products. We're going to start. We have a database that you bought a previous Amazon product and you shit talked it. So no product for you.
And the journalist review database as well.
Right. Amazon keeps a journalist database of the articles they write, and if they write negative articles, you're not in Club Jeff.
No soup for you.
Yeah, no.
And if they outright lie on the headlines with things and essentially internal documents contradict what they say publicly, then, well, we don't essentially get to hear about that, because essentially the only coverage we get is the ones essentially from the groups that they're carefully selected in advance.
I think that's unnecessary and a mistake, by the way, but I do understand that they do that.
I think what gets interesting is there was which company was it? Was it a hotel or was some company that was saying we need to start sharing bad customer data with each other? Airlines. Some airline, I'm trying to remember which one, Delta, says they keep a database of their bad customers and they want to start sharing it with the other airlines. To which I say, why aren't the hotels doing this? And what happens in the future when private companies start sharing these databases and essentially they repackage themselves as, not members only or invite only or, right to refuse service. And I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Professor Osif. No, I'm sorry. We don't have any rooms available for you tonight.
Tyler?
Yes.
The Marriott group actually does do that.
A lot of these groups have, of course, the big legacy, who have, they for themselves internally.
They do that within the company, not across.
They also, that's what I was going to get to, that I was very surprised because this started so long ago with the Ritz-Carlton Academy collaborating with other partners. And like the Marriott group, it was smart because a lot of them are now under their group anyway, but they already did this. Peter, my husband, has been working with this group for so long, and I think it was so interesting to see a lot of this from the inside and a lot that they don't want to come out. So sorry if any of Ritz and Marriott friends are listening, but I think it's awesome that they do that. Just wanted to add that.
Hey, Tyler, can I give a Southern California earthquake update?
Sure.
From what we... Okay. So Netta was very nice to send me the site that she got that from. And then I started trying to verify it with Caltech, and I was listening to the local news, in Los Angeles. No one's making any mention of it. So if there was something real, Caltech would have it, KNX would have it. And it turns out, from what I can tell, this site has been predicting earthquakes like every day all over the place. 2 weeks ago, they predicted a 6.9 in Eureka, California. Obviously, that didn't happen. So eventually, I guess they'll be right. But I mean, there's no other verification of this prediction. And because you've lived in Southern California, the go-to place is Caltech, and there's nothing on Caltech's website warning anybody. And KNX is just doing normal news like nothing's happening there. And I'm sure they would have been told if there was a legitimate prediction of a major earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know.
I looked too. I overall agree. They did seem to get something right on the Salton Sea on the 21st, but that could just be a fluke.
I remember they did something right in Turkey. I think that's probably why I might have followed them, because they were right on one of the events here in Turkey at one point. And Ken, actually, since I sent you the link, I'm also just checking on the background on some other news sites and articles and try and see if I can, they did say something. I'll send you some other links. I don't want to take up the time here right now.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, Eli, do you have a recommended early warning app for people out there that are in the, in general? Do you have one to recommend?
There's the one that started out from University of California. I don't.
Berkeley?
I think that no, it was like UCI or UCSD, but I think that California, the state government took it over. I thought. I could be wrong.
You may want to check United States Geological Survey, usgs.gov. They do have an early warning shake alert page that refers to the applications that they like.
Thank you, Shaheen. Yeah, because as far as I understand, last week when the earthquake hit Carson, a lot of the people down in LA said they got like a 30-second warning. So that's helpful.
In fact, there's a Twitter account called USGS_shake alert that might also want to be followed.
So, Chris, is there kind of like evacuation drill, or what do they know what to do if there's an early warning of a big earthquake?
Well, I'm sorry, Sho. What I remember, though, is to Chris's point, though, I think sometimes California doesn't want it because it causes more panic. And so it took earlier points. They've reduced it. What I've researched and studied, and we'll figure this out. You're better to reduce the time, because if you tell people this ahead of time, unlike maybe Japan and other places, you'll have more chaos, and that's what's been proven.
So that's the reason why if there's any earthquake drill, that people know what exactly to do so that they will not panic.
It's really like, I think the alert just says go seek, safe, and if you can get outside, get outside. And so for me, like if the alert goes off tonight, I'm grabbing the kids and I'm telling my wife we're going outside, and hopefully wait a minute later and it happens, and that's the game plan. And just the thing is, Southern California is just so massive and so sprawling that it would be a chaos if you told people something was coming.
Chris, why would you go outside? You could get hit by a falling tree. Isn't the idea?
No. It's much less threats outside, just in general with things. So the physical structures essentially you have to worry about being above you.
I'm curious. A house in, for example, Chris' house is built of RC, reinforced concrete, or is it wood or what?
Timber, and that's the thing is that wood. What we understand is that in earthquakes, the timber tends to fare well because it's flexible. A house can be almost destroyed that's built out of timber, and it's still rather strong structurally because it's flexible and adjusts. But
the pillar have to be strong,
They had to do structural reinforcements after essentially one bit of earthquakes essentially that really wrecked San Francisco specifically, where they basically put cross bracing on essentially all of the buildings, and all the garages essentially were weak spots essentially for a lot of structures around there. So they spent almost a decade upgrading all the buildings. After every time there's an earthquake, they basically analyze it against the shake tables and essentially how they've basically compared what actually got built out versus essentially what they simulated, and they upgrade the building codes essentially with that. It's very expensive to do those alterations, but it gives the entire city better quake resistance essentially for when those happen.
Okay. So the next one is AngelList launches AngelList Stack, a set of tools to help founders start and run their companies, including end-to-end incorporation and banking services. So it's kind of a bit of Stripe, actually. Stripe does a bit of that. Yep, it does look, Jesus. It looks a lot like Stripe once you actually look at the user interface of it. So I will tweet this one out and a little bit more about it. AngelList this week launched AngelList Stack, a new suite of products that will compete with Carta in providing services to help founders start, operate, and maintain ownership over their companies. The new software will cover 4 bases: end-to-end incorporation, business banking, advisor, equity grants, and cap table management. Those last 2 are definitely Carta. Every time you actually go to start a company, you start off with this optimism, says AngelList CEO. You have this idea, you're super confident, and you want to go do it. And then there is all this mundane stuff you have to figure out. The idea with AngelList Stack is to take some of those mundane and arcane processes of starting a company and make it simpler. The end-to-end incorporation service will help founders figure out paperwork of actually starting a company, from which state to incorporate into and what kind of business classification to pursue. It will also help founders track and file 83B filings and niche but important document for those with equity that can cost millions in back taxes if done wrong. By providing a simpler UX for founders, AngelList can do more than a lawyer consultation when it comes to officially launching a company. Lawyers usually view incorporation as a loss leader just to build up a relationship with the founder and work with them in the future, or just to make the paperwork easier. But then they stop right there. AngelList alternatively wants to then usher founders into the next tool, which is banking services. The banking tool has 2 parts: deposit accounts with interest and debit cards. Both accounts make it easier for founders to automatically accept wire transfers from investors, which can then blend into AngelList's new cap table tool. This is starting to
that could get lucrative. They already have all the investors on there that already trust and use it for their stuff. So they already have the trust factor a lot of groups can't do with this. So that could be very
the cap tool will include issuing digital shares, reporting 409As, and employee option grants. Founders can raise their first safe round entirely on Stack by sending a link to investors to digitally sign the safe, the company said in a statement. Once the funds arrive in the bank account, investors are automatically added to the cap table. So there's a whole digitization of the whole fundraising process with the banking and everything.
You can integrate your QuickBooks or your accounting software, and now investors can get a much clearer view of the the company's operations, and are you actually doing what you say? When you pitch, are you actually tightening the belt and issuing modest salaries, or are you being ridiculous with the money you just borrowed? And I think this is going to be very helpful for the investment community in general, because you're hearing these astronomical fundraisers. Like, Tyler, when was the last time you heard of a $300 million Series A, right? Like, I mean, come on.
One of the things that's interesting is that for AngelList specifically, what happens when they catch a whale for one of these things? I mean, one of the things as lawyers essentially that they were hoping for is that the startup survive even with a 90% failure rate. But if they get essentially, the larger firm with a good relationship, then those can be very long-term clients. Imagine if AngelList just basically has this with the bank or the monitoring or essentially the valuation aspects. You land a couple whales on this, and essentially you're charging just a tiny little percentage, essentially the overall just service fee for all this. Those could basically pay for an astronomical amount of basically rollouts, much more so than essentially just saying, "Hey, subscribe to our data sets that we have for things." That's actual percentage of revenues for some of these companies, and they'll know exactly who's actually succeeding in the industry.
Okay, so the next one is researcher discloses AirTag lost mode vulnerability that enables a phishing attack, and says Apple spent 3 months investigating and refused basic questions. The new $30 AirTag tracking device from Apple has a feature that allows anyone who finds one of these tiny location beacons to scan it with a mobile phone and discover its owner's phone number if the AirTag has been set to lost mode. But according to new research, this same feature can be abused to redirect the Good Samaritan to an iCloud phishing page or to any other malicious website. The AirTag's lost mode lets users alert Apple when an AirTag is missing. Setting it to lost mode generates a unique URL at found.apple.com and allows the user to enter a personal message and contact phone number. Anyone who finds the AirTag and scans it with an Apple or Android phone will immediately see that a unique Apple URL with the owner's message. When scanned, an AirTag in lost mode will present a short message asking the finder to call the owner at their specified phone number. This information pops up without asking the finder to log in or provide any personal information, but your average Good Samaritan might not know this. That's important because Apple Lost Mode doesn't currently stop users from injecting arbitrary computer code into its phone number field. This is such an unlikely, well, maybe not. Somebody could intentionally lose AirTags, and in this system, instead of putting their actual phone number, like, oh, call me, a normal person is going to put in a normal phone number. Oh, you found my AirTag. Please call me at this number. A bad actor could intentionally lose AirTags to somebody they're targeting. So you're targeting somebody. This is just a modern version of the USB drive trick.
USB in the parking lot.
The USB parking lot trick. So now you're going to leave an AirTag in the parking lot. The Good Samaritan who finds it will scan it. And in doing so, the bad actor who lost the AirTag doesn't put in a normal phone number. They put in a malicious piece of code that causes the Good Samaritan's device, meaning their phone, to visit a phony Apple iCloud login page where they then log in, and now the bad actor has the Good Samaritan's iCloud account.
Yep. And this is, someone else mentioned this too. This is going to start happening to QR codes where you're going to look at, and people are going to set up malicious QR codes.
Oh yeah, big time.
And so
that should have sailed.
Business there.
By the way,
QR code filtering.
Precisely why iOS 15, the QR code reader tells you where it's the QR code is pointing to, so that you can get an idea where is this QR code sending me to before you actually go there. For that reason.
If I were a malicious person, where I'd be very interested right now is USA essentially is with the labor shortages. They're putting in the QR codes at all the restaurants to make it for labor shortages. Instead of handing out menus and stuff, you just scan the card as you go in, like do in Asia. Nothing terribly new there. But because so many people, this is like, early introductions and things. If I were a malicious person, I would basically put a sticker over the one that's very prominently displayed in front of all the restaurants, and I'd serve up the actual restaurant information there with things. The menus, like everything else. I just collect a little bit of extra data fields essentially as every time that someone scans it dutifully, about once every 30 seconds or so. There's those kinds of vulnerabilities which, because there are not active security protocols in place to check for these sorts of things, a lot of people aren't on the lookout for it. So I predict essentially the more you're going to start seeing these data services start basically spreading to places that are kind of new for them, you're going to start seeing the emergence of both the hacker side, but also security services that audit for this sort of thing. A lot of restaurants aren't used to having to do digital security audits. It's just not something they're used to having to worry about. But you're going to start to see the emergence of those sorts of things as a requirement. I don't know if that's going to be regulatory or if it's going to be essentially that they come out to on their own. But other industries have had to learn this lesson the hard way.
So Kraken, who's a competitor to Coinbase, has been fined just over $1 million by the CFTC for illegally offering margined crypto products and not registering as a futures commission merchant, because margined, leveraged, or financed digital asset trading offered to retail U.S. customers must occur on properly registered exchanges. So, yeah, you can't offer margin, which is kind of like a loan in a way, unless you're registered to do so.
Fine, though. It's not a lot of fine.
Yeah.
Tyler?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure yesterday if you covered, which you probably did, the whole Binance and Singapore blocking them out now as well.
We mentioned it quickly, yeah. Is there more to that story?
Well, there's more to the fact that Binance is clearly...
By the way, Korea just banned all crypto exchanges.
The thing is that Binance could be the black swan event, because basically New York City just had the DeFi event last weekend, and there was a lot of like centrifuge. Gavin Wood was there and interviewed from Polkadot. So they're really forging forward on the projects. I think Sam Bankman-Fried was there as well. I'm not sure. But the unique part about this is that the black swan event could be the whole USDT Tether Binance situation, and it may not happen right away. It could happen in like 2-3 years. That black swan event doesn't have to happen now, because there is still an unknown question mark to all the tether behind Binance. There's still that whole question mark on where's it from, what's it, you know what I'm saying? And that is just very much on the tips of the tongue of many of those that are looking at Binance and saying, well, what is going on in here? What is this? Because Binance did do like futures and all this other stuff in it and margin trading, but they've been doing that for like 4 or 5 years. So it's not just been right now. So they're getting caught now, but they've been doing this for quite some time. So that's why I think that, in my humble opinion, I think the black swan event that God forbid could happen would probably happen in a couple of years or so. It would not happen right now.
Has anyone bothered to make a map of essentially countries where cryptocurrency is legal versus not legal with things? Because it seems like there's been a lot of movement over the last month, essentially, with China and India and South Korea.
It's also really fascinating, Chris, because if you look at the memes on Twitter around the space, China's made crypto illegal, or like 7 years in a row. Like every year, the FUD just gets more fancy and more extreme. But I think that what Tyler had said with the observation of the CDBC and the fact that China doesn't want their own money to leave the country, and the challenge with what's happening now is that the Chinese have been, I've been to Holland Casino over here in Holland. They like to gamble. They really love to gamble. It's also something that I feel that when you take something away from them, they're going to do their damnedest to find a way to do it. And that's why I think, yes, the news outlets on the mainstream could do that. But like all they're doing is changing also ownership of where they do their mining. So many, like, for example, one of the largest mining pools just shut down their operations in China, but they can still open up those operations in another country. And the United States is bear hugging it, Chris, where it means they're saying, yes, please come in here and do that here. But they're also being quite strategic, because now they could place the regulation and now it's all in the US, right? But there are countries like Tyler said, Moldova, And it really does depend. If we want to look at it from a regulator's perspective, Chris, or just taxation purposes, it has to be somewhere where capital gains are not hugely taxed. And that's what I would be looking at, is where the countries where capital gains are not highly taxed. Because whether crypto is illegal or not, the ones with the capital gains that are higher, lower, will get more people, because those countries tend to be more welcoming to people that have wealth, irregardless of where the wealth is coming from.
What do you consider a high capital gains tax rate, by the way?
Well, from the perspective of the Dutch, anything over 2%.
Oh,
Hey,
wow,
but
that's incredible. No wonder why people want to live there.
Well, Holland,
Tyler,
Ken, you could always DM me, but there's a lot of crypto traders and a lot of crypto projects and a lot of people that are connected to
2%.
that space.
2%.
It's based on how much you have at the start of the year.
My eyeballs are popping out.
Yes,
well,
but
the
did you
Dutch
hear
will
what I
do
just
that.
said? But did you hear what I just said? It's what you have at the start of the year.
So that's a wealth tax. That's not a capital gains tax. You're saying you pay a 2% on your assets or something, right?
Yeah, but Netherlands has done something really cheeky, Ken, that's pissed off Americans as well. They're going after taxing all your assets, even if you are an expat here. So they're going
That's
after everything.
because
But I'll
expats
double
like
check it.
being
I'll
there,
double
right?
check it for you.
Expats like being there because they kind of like skated some
They used to
accent
like being
rules,
here,
right?
Trader Joe, Chris. They used to like being here. This new legislation, or this new regulation, has recently come down when they really pissed off a lot of expats by lowering the 30% ruling from 10 years to 8 to now 5. So they're really cutting down, because the Netherlands has the Dutch-American Friendship Treaty, but a lot of the expats here, there's maybe over 50,000 from the United States, that are really grumbling, because it's to Ken's point, and please forgive me if I say the wrong percentages, Ken, but the long and short of it is that the number of people here that have enjoyed being here because of that 30% ruling, that tax break that they get, have now been sort of stabbed in the back, for lack of a better saying, because now they're going after their gains in other countries, including investment vehicles. So if you're an American and you have investment products in the United States and you're living in Holland, before the 30% ruling, or before like a year or so ago, you would be able to sort of have that protected, right? Now it's taxable here in Holland as well.
Yes.
Tyler, on the real quickly to end this one too, Korea, you said banned it.
Yes.
Did it ban all transactions,
All crypto
just like
exchanges.
China?
Yes. Yeah. Similar to China.
But no exchanges or transactions. There's a difference.
Let's
That's all,
see.
man.
Korea.
That's right. Ellis is right, because exchanges really have the KYC AML that has to be attached to it, and some of the Korean exchanges don't necessarily have those KYC AMLs
Here
attached.
they also ban anonymous cryptocurrency trades. So it says just 4 cryptocurrency exchanges remain in South Korea. South Korea to ban cryptocurrency traders from using
They didn't get enough politicians on their board.
Anonymous bank accounts, and that's one that was from 2 days ago. And just 4 cryptocurrency exchanges remain in South Korea as stricter rules come in.
Tyler, yes. Isn't that an oxymoron? Anonymous bank accounts?
No. MA, what they're doing, and I know the structure. They're okay because let's. I'm just to clarify a couple of data points. But yeah, a couple of data points though. Korea and China, regardless of migration, are still the largest mining for cryptocurrency. Period. And even if they were to come to Holland and move around the world, it will take time. So it's intriguing because Korea's economy, this is economics, is tied to crypto more than China is. And there's different plays at work. That's why I was trying to understand it. But, I'm going at that horizontal higher level, 30,000 feet versus the micro nuances. But it's intriguing because the Koreans don't have much of a global economy outside of the U.S. And I'm trying to understand that. That's why I was asking. But thanks, Tyler. We
And
can move
LS,
on.
this is where Tyler's wonderful observation of journalism comes into play, because this is where someone like you with your expertise, LS, understands you have an eyebrow raised that maybe this writer or this story is not 100% accurate, that it could be also fear, uncertainty, and doubt to manipulate the market to believe that Korea's the Korea will ban them or will make it illegal, where in reality it doesn't make logical sense. So for someone like yourself, LS, that understands this space, it's kind of a bit of a question mark, like why would they do that? And then you'll do the critical thinking and realize that it could possibly be FUD and just something as used as a vehicle to help people to get scared and run away.
Okay, we got to get into.
Go
ahead,
Tyler. Just a quick comment. A related phenomenon that we should expect is increased lobbying on behalf of cryptocurrency holders and advocates, because they're not doing that.
Agreed.
And I think they're recognizing that there's a need for that, and I expect that to grow.
Okay, so the next big article is Tim Sweeney, CEO of Epic, and some executives discuss Epic's metaverse plans, contrasting it with Facebook's quote-unquote manicured feed and emphasizing the role of creators. And let me see this one. He has a quote.
We're going to see a split in marketing terms again. Metaverse isn't going to hold here with things because everyone's going to present their own unique vision, and the marketing people say, well, ours is actually different. And they're going to need another set of words again.
He says, now we are in a closed platform wave, and Apple and Google are surfing that wave too. Sweeney says, as we get out of this, everybody's going to realize, okay, we spent the last decade being taken advantage of. And the metaverse isn't going to be that, Sweeney said. A car maker who wants to make a presence in the metaverse isn't going to run ads. They're going to drop their car into the world in real time, and you'll be able to drive it around. And they're going to work with lots of content creators with different experiences to ensure their car is playable here and there, and that it's receiving the attention it deserves. Another quote, they have all, he points to how Facebook has engaged with businesses over the years to illustrate his belief. They have all these people follow them, and then at some point, Facebook decided we're not going to let businesses talk to them directly unless you pay us. And then they introduced advertising as this monetization thing. By the time business figured out, they were trapped. And what he's referring to is originally in Facebook, if somebody followed you, they would see your posts. And then they changed the algorithms, so you would make a post and not everyone would see it, but they're following you, but they're not seeing it. Oh, you tricked us, you greedy fuckers, Facebook. You tricked us. You told us, we were building a following, and we're not building a following. You're controlling our following, and now you're charging us to get the message to the people who are already following us. You fucking greedy fucks. You fucked over the whole planet. That's why nobody trusts you. Fundamentally, that was the first big fuck, where Facebook raped everybody. They tricked the entire planet into participating on their platform because everybody was building up their followings thinking they would be able to stay in touch with those people. And then Facebook said, nope, you got to pay to reach those people. It's called that, you want to run an ad? You want to boost your post? You want to boost this post so people actually see it? Pay us the money. We found our monetization strategy, and it involves fucking you. You thought you were going to be able to reach those people who were following you, but no. So hence, I was just going to say that's the fundamental original sin of Facebook was their entire business model is based on a huge con of all of their users who helped build the platform. And then as Tim Sweeney says, by that time, they decided they weren't going to let people talk directly unless you pay us. And then they introduced advertising as this monetization thing. And by that time, businesses figured out they were already trapped.
Well, it's a little bit worse than that too. I remember when they first started at Extreme Lashes, we were doing this. They made you pay, right? So you pay to build up followers for the ability to talk to them, and then they're like, "Oh, you pay to build them, and then now you got to pay to talk to them," right? Like, yeah, that was the original sin, man. Thanks for pointing that out. Hey, I wanted to mention one quick thing, Tyler, which was, I have a question for the group out here. This blockchain tech, right? If you look at opportunity zones, if you want to talk about long-term capital gains rates, with opportunity zone funds, if you own an asset more than 10 years, it'll actually be zero tax if you set up the structure in an opportunity zone. So I'm wondering if you can set up a mining operation inside of an opportunity zone, and a lot of opportunity zones are all over the country, in many different zip codes, or even just a service office, and collect investment in there, and then 10 years later, would there be no tax on all the appreciation of the asset of the underlying assets of the digital currency?
Separate room. We do a bunch of crypto rooms, and we'll bring it up in there because it's a fine question. It deserves a good answer, but we'll save it for another room.
And
yes.
Tyler, I just wanted to comment quickly on the metaverse. I think the gamers will win, and I don't know if it was Chris or someone else that said they'll do a subscription versus the ad, because if the game is glitchy, the metaverse is going to be like a virtual reality game. And if you're experienced business or whatever, ultimate reality, you're not going to, I don't think Facebook is there, to be honest. I'm talking about on that real deep tech. So, when you talk about Epic and what they're really trying to do, they see a world where you will pay like Netflix or something. You're just going to pay a subscription, and you might pay premium without ads or whatever, but you're going to still build your own world and your own following and have sort of your own community. Just like if we had Clubhouse as a virtual community, we'd have avatars to see each other and all these things.
Policy and politics will shape this far more than consumer preference. Just saying.
Agree, but they still want the money, I'm saying, Chris. So they'll want the revenue from the tax base at some point too.
Okay, so the next one up here is Amazon details Amazon Glow, a family-oriented $300 device with an 8-inch display and projector that creates a 19-inch touch-sensitive area on a surface in front of it. So it looks like a large cell phone, like one of them old school brick cell phones, like the OG original cell phone. And
is Morris phone?
Yeah, but then you set it on a desk. It has a little screen in it, an 8-inch screen and a camera, so you can do video calls with it. And then there's a little projector at the top of it, and it shines a little additional screen on your tabletop, and which can be a keyboard, or it can be a video, or it can be and you can interact with it. It's an interactive projection, so it sees your fingers interacting with it, so you can touch with it. It's almost like a touch screen, a projected touch screen on the table. It's called Amazon Glow, a new interactive device aimed at families that allow kids to interact with family members and other remote loved ones over video calls. While something of a competitor to Facebook portal devices, which are also largely aimed at connecting families over video, Amazon Glow differentiates itself by providing more than just another connected screen experience. It also uses technology to create an interactive projected space in front of the device to provide a surface for virtual activities like games, art, puzzle, and more, to give the feeling of an in-person experience. So in this example, the projector projects a game onto the tabletop, an interactive game where you touch it and it responds because it can sense your finger movements with the objects in the game, and puzzles, etc. To do so, Amazon Glow combines immersive projection. I gotta say, this looks incredibly cool. I'm gonna tweet this out and look at the photos of these kids playing with this device.
Does it look as good as a casino gaming environment? Like, for me, that kind of is like always the cutting edge of technology. Like when you go into casino right now, like the screens and all that is like really next level. Like, is it there yet?
Go check out,
for people that are
go check out. You got to see the photos. This is one of the coolest things I've seen in a while.
So for people that are interested in this, there's been an alternative tech branch for UX that's been investing in the space. The architectural people paid for a lot of this with live events and such for like projection mapping, and they started looking at could you use this for like more close-up stuff. For people that are interested in this, a few resources that are really good to look at. Dynamicland.org has the former head that basically did the iPad user interface with things. Brett Victory went off from that and basically designed a whole physical space where they have like dozens of projectors in a physical place, and we're working on that for the last 6 years or something like that.
Interesting.
Another place is projectioncentral.org has amazing stuff, and Lightform essentially has a consumer product very similar to this that has been in the works for a while. So this technology is something that's been kind of more niche it's kind of interesting watching essentially Amazon kind of scaling it out to more of a consumer product space.
What's cool about this is the projected surface can be books basically, and the child, it's not just any book, because it's like they can read with you, and as you speak, the words light up, and it's an interactive book essentially.
I'm ordering one for my kids.
You've seen the photos, right?
It looks really good.
It looks fucking awesome.
It's great.
Yeah,
it's great.
The idea of an interactive book like that's touchscreen, that's freaking crazy.
I've actually built these, and what's really interesting with this is like specifically for the specific use case of searching in books. The one I was using was like we were experimenting with tangible user interfaces, so you could have like physical objects that we were using it to search for through the book content as like an augmented type kind of experience. One thing to basically pay attention to is the brightness level essentially, because one of the things you'll notice with the product is essentially when they basically have consumer photographs of this, it's going to basically, whether it works or not in broad daylight, is something very, very, very big difference. Human eye can differentiate between 10,000 and 100,000 lumens essentially without width the same to you because it's just bright sunlight. However, with a projector, often they basically are only around 2,000 to 3,000 lumens and basically struggle basically for anything brighter than that. So the reason why this is a big deal is that for a lot of use cases, essentially where you've got kids, you might only be able to use it for during certain lighting conditions. This is something that actually doesn't sound like it's a really big deal, but it does dramatically affect things like Chris was bringing up earlier compared to the casino environments. One of the things they basically have with those ultra high quality OLED screens and such is they basically are really attentive both to the refresh rate and to essentially to the brightness levels. For the groups that basically are experimenting with the Pico projectors, which is like the branch of technology this is building off of, combined with some simple computer vision, often they'll basically take cheaper projectors, which make for some really good demos under very carefully controlled situations. But where this becomes kind of challenging is that the camera systems will basically have to compete with the projector, where the projector wants darker lighting conditions so you can actually use it effectively in that condition, while the camera wants brighter lighting conditions so it can basically use more effective computer vision. And whenever you basically see a product like this, you can see essentially which trade-off they went off with, depending on which functionality gets more focus. In this case, it looks like the cameras essentially are getting more focus, and they're kind of just establishing this. Because when you look at essentially the product photos they're releasing, a lot of these look more simulated and more Photoshop type kind of aspects. There are actual product demos things on here, so the product works. I'm just saying that when you're looking at the long-term thing of this space, I do think you're going to see a lot more products in this general category. Probably not from Amazon, but probably from other groups. And these are some factors to basically take into mind when you're seeing these emerge.
Yeah, you gotta go to. I'm gonna tweet out this link, and my God, this thing keeps getting better and better. This is the actual Amazon page where you can order the device, and there's little videos where it shows how the animations of the projection work with the kid interacting with it. And the child takes one of their favorite little toys, puts the toy on the table, the camera scans it, digitizes it, and now it projects the digital version of the toy into the projection.
What's the cost, Tyler?
Right now, $249.
I think this will apply a lot to education, in my opinion, especially co-ed and distant learning and what'll keep going on for a few years. If it's only a price point of $250,
look at
Chris,
the tweet.
when Chris said he's ordering
I just
it now
sent
for
on the
his
Tech News
kids.
Twitter account.
Okay.
Just look at it.
I will. Yeah.
It builds on the Osmo and just really takes it further.
It's unbelievable. Anyway, the next story is from Protocol. Facebook asks its oversight board for guidance on what content should get a second review via its cross-check program, which reportedly shields VIPs from its rules. The next one from TechCrunch. I just have to. That's such a weird headline, and Jeff Horowitz is tweeting about it after previously declining its oversight board's request for information about the XCheck program for VIP enforcement. Facebook is asking it for advice. Right, that's what's so weird about this. Previously, Facebook said there was nothing new about reporting on the program. The board disagreed, and here he has a good point. So that it was revealed, Jeff Horowitz in his Facebook files last week revealed this thing called the cross-check program, which is basically like this VIP list of people who are sort of immune from moderation. And the oversight board said, what the hell is this thing? Shouldn't we know about this? Because we're in the business of deciding who should be on the platform and who should be penalized and moderated. And after previously declining, so apparently, according to Jeff Horowitz from the Wall Street Journal, Facebook declined to the oversight board request for more information about the program. But now
sounds like a really good way for having oversight,
right,
for 6 million accounts.
Right. So no oversight for you for these 6 million accounts. And declined their request for more information about it. And now Facebook is asking the oversight board for its advice.
This is fine. Just don't expect that to hold a whole lot of weight when they basically tell politicians or tell the public saying we've got a strong oversight board that basically controls all of our stuff and we get checks on everything. I mean, it's fine. It's their business decision to do this. It's just it's important that we basically remember these things because it's a difference between having like a nice little parakeet that'll basically give you advice and having something that has more strong checks with legal enforceability. This is more or less just something to basically placate people while they basically spin up lobbying money and such. It is actually serving that purpose in many regards.
Okay, so next up, a company called Sisu Data, SISU, which offers a machine learning powered decision intelligence engine for businesses, raises $62 million. Affirm, which is the buy now pay later company based in the US, kind of competing with Klarna, plans to debut a debit card and allows its customers to buy and sell crypto directly from Affirm's savings accounts. And that debit card is kind of an interesting concept. If it's a debit card, but you may not be paying anything immediately. It has deferred payments or whatnot. Customers will be able to buy and sell crypto, including Bitcoin. We won't let you do crazy things, Affirm's CEO Max Levchin says. What I want to know is how this debit card works. Here it is. Our superpowers are in developing sophisticated, scalable. Bloomberg, your ads are ridiculous here. Scalable technology, risk management, and high efficient access capital, says Max Levchin. Expect us to look for more opportunities to buy and build as we look to leverage our core strengths. With its latest ambitions, Affirm is joining a bevy of banks and technology giants hoping to become the world's next super app, akin to China's Alipay and WeChat Pay, India's Paytm, or Singapore's Grab. Those companies combine everything from financial services and payments to food delivery and shopping all in one place. Affirm's customers are already starting to turn to the company in this way. Roughly a third of its transactions originate from Affirm's website and app rather than the merchant's partner websites. Yep. Here come the super apps. Told you months ago. Been telling you for months. And the fintech apps are where it starts. It can be a chat app like WeChat, who's also going to try and become a super app, but you need WhatsApp is adding finance to it right now so that it can become a super app. But you see all of the fintech apps like Revolut, and it's going to be very interesting to see who can really pull off the first super app in the US.
Tyler? And I think like with the, with the firm, entering with the buy now, pay later model. But then as I think about who their target demographic would be, they probably would most benefit from wraparound types of services, so outside of New York and DC in the US, most of the country is a driving nation. And so, people who might most likely be attracted to this buy now layaway kind of feature might also have transportation needs and other needs that hopefully maybe a firm or someone else might be able to meet.
Tyler?
May?
Apparently the dog wanted to respond to Lakeisha.
Okay. The Amazon unveils $250 Echo Show 15 with a 15.6-inch 1080p display wall mount visual ID for tailored content, picture frame mode, and more. Trading and mobile analytics. Okay. The FDA clears an AI program for computational diagnostics startup Page, which can help detect cancerous cells in prostate tissue slides. So AI for helping detect prostate cancer. That's fantastic. Excel Data, which makes AI-based data observability software for data quality pipelines and system infrastructure, raises $35 million. Stellar Health, whose cloud-based tools help healthcare providers, raises $60 million. Vaccine passport app called PortPass, which has 650,000 registered users across Canada, according to the company CEO, had a security flaw exposing private user info. Amazon launches $20 a month elder care subscription services called Alexa Together, with an emergency helpline feature, care alerts, tools for caregivers, and more. Amazon and Disney partner on Hey Disney, a custom voice assistant built around Alexa, rolling out to customers and the Orlando Disney World Resort next year. Amazon debuts $80 Halo View fitness band, the first device from its Halo Health and Wellness initiative, with a screen alongside a Halo fitness service and more. Alexa will soon let users adjust preferences for sports, food, weather, and more, and train it to identify sounds in their home like ringing doorbells. And that covers all of the big stories. And now we get into the tweets. Like this one, that according to Bloomberg, buyers are so hungry for liquefied natural gas that now more than a dozen LNG tankers are waiting their turn to fill up at Qatar's port, in a clear sign of how tight the global gas market has become.
And if only like a year or two, essentially all those groups that were being paid surplus just to store this stuff, when the price of oil's futures went negative, like, I mean, man, if only people had storage capacity, hold on to this kind of sort of time frame, right?
The next one from Karam says, for the first time, hyperbaric oxygen therapy is proven to reverse biological aging in humans. So Michael Jackson was right. Study proven to reverse aging in humans. This unique oxygen treatment is available at Aviv clinics. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And it shows people sitting in a chair, watching their phone with this, oxygen tube, mask on their face. Apparently it reverses aging.
So wait, is it hyperbaric or is it just the face mask version?
It says hyperbaric, but in the photo it shows a face mask.
I'll dive into this a little bit. I know a thing or two about respiratory care. Mm-hmm. I have so many questions because oxygen's actually proven to be dangerous at high enough concentration. So I'm going to look at the FiO2s. I'm going to look at the pressures. I'm going to look at everything. I'm going to read.
Go ahead.
This.
Get back to us.
Excess oxygen will generate free radicals as well. So you need to think about that.
Okay. And Bernard just raised his hand here. Bernard, you have a comment about this oxygen headline?
I do. Thank you. Yeah, I, as a result of a mild traumatic brain injury, I've worked with Paul Harch in Louisiana, who happens to be at this time the top hyperbaric oxygen expert in the United States, probably in the world. The HBOT, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. The mask you're seeing is probably someone sitting inside a 12-passenger hyperbaric chamber, where a person puts on a mask, and at that point there are various depths to which the participants will descend. All in the tank at the same time, go down to either 1 atmosphere, 1.5 atmospheres, 2.3 atmospheres, etc. Each atmospheric pressure has to do with a certain type of use of the oxygen. Medically available oxygen, this is what they're calling it, at 1.5 bar pressure is where oxygen actually becomes efficient in the body. And as you rise up, say to 2.3, which is another area I know, has been used for not Crohn's disease, but something else. So there is a danger point at which you become oversaturated with oxygen. It's poisonous in the system. My experience, speaking experientially here, my experience comes from having done over 200 plus hours of hyperbaric oxygen at the recommendation of Dr. Harch in Louisiana, or the European expert Dr. Jane in Switzerland. So it's an extremely effective thing for re-innovating the neurons in the brain. And as I looked at Dr. Harch's site in the States, I think it's hbot.com, he was talking about the effects of hyperbaric oxygen on genetics, which may link to that article you just spoke about, saying that it reduces aging. And those have been my experiences. Thank you for letting me speak.
Sure.
Bernard, I just had a question. Is that similar to the ozone therapy that people were talking about like 15, 20 years ago, and then they were testing it on herpes and also on HIV and AIDS patients?
No, ozone's a totally different combination of oxygen and nitrogen. What we're talking about here is we're talking about pure oxygen, and pure like 95 or so percent pure, which is piped into the masks by an external oxygen holding tank. Thank you.
In the hyperbaric chambers, they're also utilized for like diabetics to basically, when you're inside the hyperbaric chamber, the extremities will get the oxygen that's needed. There's also designs out there now that are, hyperbaric chambers to be really expensive, but they don't need to be, because you can have like a flexible material that can collapse down and be extended out. And then as long as it can handle the pressure, you could actually get portable hyperbaric chambers. And that's something that we're actually working on as well.
Yeah,
It's
underwater
true that
cities of the
chambers
future.
It's true that chambers can be used. By the way, there are chambers just all over. Heck, I've done them in Singapore, the States, Europe, et cetera, when I had a brain injury, and which I still do, but it's been a long time. 2 points. Number one, the portable chambers do not have the ability to bear the pressure, meaning 1.5 atmospheres of pressure that it takes to bring oxygen to a medical usage ability. And so the portable chambers are good for, gosh, I don't really know what, probably just breathing oxygen. But it has to be pressurized in order to be working in the system medically, which is a point that Paul Harch brought out very strongly with me when he reviewed my slides, the slides of my brain from a PET scan. By the way you get to knowing if you need something in terms of hyperbaric is, there are many uses. One is wound healing, where it does bring oxygen into the body to the places of the wound, not specifically, but all through the body. And as you mentioned, diabetes a minute ago, of course, it will bring oxygen to all those parts. My particular use was to get it into the brain, into those very, very fine capillaries that had gone to sleep after I had a brain injury, which had livened them. And that was 10 years after the brain injury. So that's pretty much what I know. Thanks.
Incredible.
In relation to COVID, what was weird was the fact that like these things have been proven to be very effective, the most effective treatment for COVID. And one of our directors on the team, he's a chief medical director for Bayshore Hospital in New Jersey. And I talked to him. I was like, "Dude, you got and he actually is a hyperbaric chamber. He's a surgeon as well as a hyperbaric chamber specialist." And I talked to him about this. He went to the hospital, right? And he's like, "Hey, we need to get these in here. The problem is 95% of hyperbaric chambers are in outpatient settings." And then the hospitals came back and said, we don't. They need to be close to an ICU, even though they're the most effective treatment. And then inside of the rooms, they're putting on the masks, and they're basically, COVID is coming out more, whereas in the hyperbaric chamber it would be more closed. He ended up just said, "Screw this! This is the right thing to do," and started bringing patients into the hyperbaric chambers to save their lives. So that's also something that as dealing with the oxygen shortages everywhere. That's just a point that's an inefficiency in the system. If anybody can bring that to the attention of medical staff, we have hyperbaric chambers all over the place, and they could be used for COVID, but they're really not being used as they should be. I'm Maher Dawudi. I'm complete.
Yeah, I just want to caution that it's for people who need it, not for normal people to think that they can increase longevity just by taking it. Because excess oxygen, I don't know for sure, but if you're like people who take vitamins, and if your nitric oxide pathway is not effective, you will produce peroxynitrites, which will cause damage to your tissue more than you will produce nitric oxide, so that's a way to think about it as well.
The thing is,
Prophet. Sorry, I just want to mention something. It's actually quite trendy. Well, common in Japan to have an oxygen chamber for especially ladies who wants to look better to regularly visit those oxygen chamber to actually lie in the capsule, the oxygen capsule to breathe in lots of oxygen. Is that really helping?
Is it just like sunbathing? It used
Yeah,
to be
but it's
trendy,
inside the
but
oxygen chamber.
we found out why
Oxygen
it's.
right. Oxygen capsule, I think they call it.
The chamber changes the hemodynamics. When you're at 1 atmosphere in FiO 295, it's different than when you're at 1.5 bar. Because the oxygen goes in a different gradient, they call it. So I need to look into it, but medically at 1 atmosphere, the jury is out on high enriched oxygen and its effect on on your body. I mean, like we're starting to recommend in emergency settings to move away from 100% oxygen in emergency settings, just because it's consuming a lot of it, and as well as causing some damage. But at higher pressures, I'm sure there's different hemodynamics. So I'm not going to dispute other people's experience.
Okay, we got
Paul Harch has.
We got to get back into the headlines.
Thank you.
Final thought.
Quick thought, around the country, there's hyperbaric pods, one person in the pod. There are hyperbaric tubes. You lie down inside a long glass tube. And then there are hyperbaric chambers seating from 4 to 12 people. Last of all, you need to check with your insurance company because the treatments are relatively expensive, 75 to 100 plus per hour. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernard. So the next headline to jump into here, PT Yoder found that GM, General Motors, is announcing this very cool electric van. Oh, let me go back so I can retweet him and give him credit for this. And it's basically like a UPS van, a little smaller than for Americans who know what a FedEx, it looks more like a FedEx van, but it's EV. It's called the EV410. They already have Verizon as their first buyer. GM debuts mid-size electric delivery van with Verizon as customer. The question is, how far is the range? 250 miles on a charge, which is plenty. And this, for the van lifers, they are going to go crazy for this thing because it's a bit taller and a bit wider and a bit longer than your average van lifer van. Boy, could they make a very comfortable house out of that thing.
Yes, dude. Is it? By looking at it, can you see if it's bigger than what's that called? The Mercedes
Sprinter. Yeah, it's considerably bigger than a Sprinter. Yeah.
Oh wow, dude! And is it gonna be cheaper because those things are expensive?
Yeah,
those Sprinters,
they're very expensive. And this thing is, because it's a delivery van, it's kind of bare bones, just a shell. But it's an EV.
It's a step van size, right?
Step
That's
van,
what they call that.
The company said it's on track to deliver those vans to FedEx. So it's a very FedEx style van, but you can look at it. It looks like a stylish, new, hip EV electric vehicle.
So Verizon as the customer, think about that now. Think of how they need to do bandwidth shaping with 5G and what this means for that.
So I want to see what the thing's going to cost.
Exactly. That's going to be my question. What's it going to cost, right? I'm excited about that.
Yeah. There's going to be an absolute, vans like this. Just go ahead and look at the photo. I just tweeted it out. and that is going to become a whole shit. Oh, by the way, where did the headline go? It was, I tweeted it right before we opened this room. There's now expected to be 30 million households in America are expecting to, because now they're desperate for a new policy to come into place to prevent them from becoming homeless. They cannot afford next month's
That's
rent.
1/3 of our population. Essentially, there's 100 million households in the USA. If they're saying 30 million, it's a third
of households. Yeah, it's
it's a 330 million population, about 100 million, 110 million.
I tweeted it 3 hours ago when we opened the room. If somebody can find it, I want to read it. But the point of that is where do those people go? Right? If they
grab pitchforks and they start burning down parts of the neighborhood.
Yes, well,
that essentially
historically that is what happens. Historically, Chris is right. This is how revolutions start.
Well, not revolutions. It's where the police departments actually come from slave catchers and people that burn down neighborhoods. That's literally the origins of there's the northern part and the southern part, and they merge together, and that's kind of the modern practice with things comes from those origins. So you will get to see versions of seeing, well, how they scaled up properly.
But if you're talking millions of people who cannot afford wherever they're living, there needs to be something like this, because you can buy these vans for $50,000 and.
Yeah, and Tyler, you're right on. I mean, I don't agree one way or the other, but the Democrats are fighting this on the Hill. And if these are mobile devices that can, like, almost like Elon Musk's satellite, that can move these people, further out to the deserts or these other areas, but give them sufficiency so you don't have this camp in Texas with the, under the bridge of 15,000 migrants. I'm sorry?
Like Mad Max?
Yeah, well, regardless of the politics or the policies, I'm saying, because I don't go there. I'm just talking about 15,000 immigrants under one bridge. And I know people that were in that Texas area saying, LS, we can't even go to work for the last 2 weeks because it's just blocked off. So what do you do with those people? And I think to Tyler's point, if you have these mobile, units and they're self-sufficient, you put a family in them and you move them elsewhere.
It is
Tyler, I found
How many miles? How many miles does it go per
250. What did you find, Ken?
I found it. Hold on a sec. Can you hear me? Yeah. So let me go back to it because I got to go back to where the Twitter is. It says roughly 3 points. It's on something. The news source is called Quartz.
Yes.
At QZ. I don't know. Roughly 3.3 million American households are worried about facing evictions within 2 months. Pandemic rental assistance can't get to U.S. renters fast enough. That's true because they actually allocated, I think, like $30 or $40 billion, and the states can't get it out because they have all these. They're trying to prevent fraud, so they want you to prove that you have almost no money left. They want you to prove that you actually need it, and so there's all sorts of documentation.
Because they were so careful for those trillions handed out to the real estate owners for the skyscrapers in downtown cities. Like the fraud detection only comes at the very end of it, essentially, when they're basically going through with the fine-tooth comb. Very much like the tax policies, where it's like, we don't have the resources to be able to do fraud detection on the people that are going off the yachts, and they sue back, which is a pain. So we're just going to basically go for the people basically that have barely anything.
Chris, for the most part, because I worked in the housing area. Okay, for the most part, I'm not debating the social inequities that you're talking about, but the way that the stuff happens for the big developers is through depreciation breaks and tax breaks, as opposed to actually handing out cash. Okay, it's different. I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying it's very different. Okay. Anyway, so this is from the start of the. You want me to read it?
Yeah, Tyler, give the headline again.
Yeah, so the headline, it says pandemic rental assistance can't get to U.S. renters fast enough. Okay. And then the article starts off and it says from the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, U.S. housing advocates warned that nationwide government assistance to help renters cover months of back-owned rent. That's the other thing, by the way. It's not just the next month's rent. They all back rent for over a year was the only way to starve off an eviction crisis in the long term. Now, a month after the expiration of the federal eviction moratorium, and by the way, for those of you who live in California, you're interested, I think California still has their own moratorium in place for another month or two. The distribution of rent relief at the state and local level has been all more important. The U.S. Treasury reported on September 24th that states and cities had distributed $7.7 billion in emergency rental assistance in nearly 1.4 million payments. So those were the number of payments by the end of August, representing only 16% of the overall federal pot. August saw the most money distributed so far, reaching 420,000 households, up from 365,000 households in July. And I think that's the whole article. Or oh no, there's more. I can't.
That's the point. I mean, the point is we could be in a serious shitstorm.
And I'll tell you what, I think the debates, again, having worked in public policy and forgetting about being liberal or conservative, whatever, just sometimes, functional and practical, they're debating all these new programs about childcare credits and this and that. And you have this happening, and they should be more focused on this issue than everything else they're talking about,
Agreed, Ken. But politicians maybe will have an AI system at some point in the future. But I agree with you 100%, Ken. So, and appreciate, because you're right. It doesn't matter the policy and the politics on one side or the other. The problem, it's a domino effect on one side or the other. So if nothing happens and it doesn't get solved, it just creates a bigger problem later.
No, what good is a child tax credit if you're homeless? I mean, this is debating child tax credits. I mean, it's nonsense.
Majority of zip codes in the United States, it is functionally illegal to basically build tiny homes or structures that are not on wheels, because essentially they like to be able to move entire things around. There is a cornered market on real estate that we've built an enormous basically set of cards on, and this is basically functionally how large portions of the population are told this is your functional future, your retirement, and everything else, while other parts of the population are told you will never participate in this. Functionally, we are creating a new caste system, and this is basically where one of the dividing lines is.
So I just tweeted, BB found another article about this new GM EV410. The 410 stands for the fact that it has 410 cubic square feet of storage space. It has the rear door is a rolling door from the top down, and which van lifers are going to love as well. And I'm convinced just the size of it, it seems absolutely ideal for.
It's like a Class B motorhome, right? Like basically, Class C's are like as wide as they get, but they have the van chassis. The Class A looks like a bus, and like the B is like a hybrid, and this is like that. It does look like the perfect size for that kind of.
And the fact that the walls are intentionally perfectly square is a dream come true for the people designing, to retrofit everything in. So
what was the cost?
Nobody knows. We've confirmed that they've not announced the pricing yet.
By the way, I was looking up real quick. No, I was looking up real quick. Just give me a second. Look up since we're on the topic, look up while I was looking this up. Have you heard of the Volta Zero?
Yeah. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I was just looking that up, and that's like a Class A looking truck, and it gets 90 to 100
from the
miles.
UK Volta, yeah.
Yep,
similar thing. Yeah. Okay, so we have a whole bunch to get into here, and a whole bunch of people retweeting the article about that GM electric truck. The next one is from Maurice from New York Times. Facebook groups promoting ivermectin as a COVID treatment continue to flood Facebook, according to the New York Times. In some of the groups, members are given advice on how to evade the company's rules on misinformation by coming up with clever code words. So you don't say ivermectin out loud. They have some code word for it, and they start speaking in this weird coded language, like child sex traffickers and pedophiles and stuff, So the next one is from Evan, and this is a very fun source of data that he found related to the fact that TikTok just passed 1 billion monthly active users. The question is, which app has the most million active users, and how many million active users do they have?
What's the question again?
WeChat.
You know what?
What's the question? What's app?
Yeah, It's not a good Jeopardy question. It's too many questions I can ask out of this. So it's out of monthly active users, TikTok just passed 1 billion monthly active users. It turns out they are the fourth largest. There are 3 companies that are even bigger than TikTok in the number of monthly active users. And the 3 companies...
Isn't that
WeChat?
Yeah,
WeChat, yeah.
But
it's WeChat. It would be WeChat.
WeChat
of course, WeChat does. But Instagram, they're not counting WeChat in this one. It's Instagram has...
So this isn't very accurate then.
Yeah, I don't...
Facebook, I would say.
Yes, Facebook has 2.9 billion monthly active users. YouTube is number 2 with 2 billion, and Instagram's number 3 with 1.5 billion. And then TikTok with 1 billion. Then Snapchat with 500 million. Then Pinterest, Reddit, Spotify, and Discord.
Where are all the India and Chinese apps?
Yes, exactly.
This is not a complete list.
Wait. How big is Discord, though? Wait, that's actually interesting. It was that high up. What was the Discord?
I know. This is a bad list. It says 150 million. Twitter's supposed to have 200. So
their data sets
data's not good.
This is very...
Let's move
Yes,
on.
next one. New York Times, microplastic pollution. A fjord. Researchers found that one tiny Arctic village... this village's unfiltered sewage produces as much microplastic as the treated waste of more than 1 million people. Microplastic pollution is a bigger problem than we think, according to the New York Times. This fjord shows even small populations can create giant microfiber pollution.
So that either means they've got fantastic filtration on the big cities or really crappy ones on that one.
Yeah. The next one is from Dr. Fran, that virtual reality affects children differently than adults. While very little is known on the effects of immersive VR on adults, there is next to no knowledge on the impact of such systems on the sensory motor abilities of children.
Oh, Tyler, Dr. Fran was actually trying to get into the stage with things. I'm not sure if someone on the stage blocked her or something.
Okay. The next one is also from Dr. Fran, that London's One Aldrich Hotel now serves a virtual reality cocktail. Your drink will take you to Scotland and back, which raises an...
That is risky.
Well, it raises an interesting concept of like VR restaurants where you and your other friends at the table are wearing VR headsets and see each other as avatars and the food as some other VR thing, because your visual sense of the food greatly impacts your experience.
Okay, for context here, like essentially, like there was a time period for about 2 years where things were literally, I would fly to every VR conference that was happening, like it's like 1 week after another worldwide, and it was a very weird time for things. But one of the things is that on every one of these demos, you make sure for many years you would have essentially the trash cans positioned strategically near each one of the demo stations as a thing, because inevitably it only takes one person to do this. Someone's going to puke, and when they do, and when they feel ill, that suddenly makes all the other people around them. And this was it for years. Yeah. Now they've gotten better at this. They've gotten a lot better at it. Enough so that people can actually put this, and some journalist isn't going to immediately draw a dot because they don't have it in recent time frame. But I have to say, that is really ambitious, because you only need one bad headline for one bad event, and that is going to be really risky.
Well, the funny part would be if somebody does puke, you'll say, no, it wasn't the food, it was the VR headset that caused you to puke.
Hey, Tyler, we need to go back on that math with the renters. Yeah. So it's 30% of the country. They said 3.3 million households, that are at risk. There's 120 million households in the U.S.
Was it 30 or 3? Those were very different numbers.
That's right. It's closer to 3% than 30%.
Yeah. So 3 million households is still just 3, and there's 100 million households. Okay, that makes sense. So it's about
120 million households.
Yeah, so about 3% of the population.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
It's still a lot of people. It doesn't really matter.
10 million folks is not like 10 million people gathered in one spot that are, not happy that essentially did everything right, but too late, you're on their ass.
But even if it's 3 million, it's still
a lot. What's the average number per household? 3 million houses times 2.5 or something?
It's about 3. It's 2.53. It depends on essentially
so we're talking,
but 3 is a good ballpark.
Oh, I see what you're using a multiplier.
Yeah, 8 or 9 million people. Yeah, it's a lot of people. So where the point is, there's a notable lack of between homelessness and housed. There needs to be a gradient.
The housing exists. The housing exists. For people that have studied this with things, the housing exists. Essentially, the housing policy does not. The structures exist, but essentially the financial ownership structures of the housing has changed dramatically over 10, 20 years. In many counties and essentially many groups essentially where there's municipalities, the groups that are basically making the decisions on housing policy often are landholders that are renting out their properties and are financially basically staked to having certain policies. We do not have accurate representation of the population on a lot of the voting committees that basically make the decisions that affect the majority of the people affected by this. So this is a
Actually,
universal
Chris,
template.
we are absolutely short housing units because, quite frankly, California just changed the law like a month ago. It's going to be too late. It's going to take years. But typically in California, I think it's like at least half the state. The stuff is only zoned for single family homes, no matter what the plot of land is. So you can't really build multiple dwellings. And the population increases. You have immigration. We actually don't have enough units. Okay, period. It's not just like people are hoarding units. And if people are hoarding some units now, Chris, it's because of this like rent moratorium. If you were a landlord, would you really want to rent something out that you can't evict somebody? So yeah, so you have some people hoarding units now, but that's because of a flawed policy.
Respectfully, what it is, and Eli will confirm this, is they're going vertical everywhere. Like, they're not interested in building single family dwellings. They're interested in building 4 to 5 story mixed use, have retail on the bottom, you living
Luxury
on top.
condos.
Yeah, I mean, and they cost $4,000 to $5,000 a month for a 2 to 3 bedroom. So that's their real plan. They don't care about the middle class. They don't care
Who
about
is
the
they?
It's
lower
But
the
class.
only real estate developers essentially financially cannot get through essentially permitting processes in many municipalities without going through essentially 6 years of essentially reviews. When you're going to go through that many back and forth sessions, a lot of projects can just die essentially unless they basically have enough wherewithal to get through that. So de facto, by the end of that, it'd be great to essentially make affordable housing, and that's not going to survive the permitting process.
You drive through the valley right now, and it's just like turning into skyscrapers here. And this is and I don't know if Eli's awake, but he'll tell you that's not how the valley was. And I'm not resistant to it. I'm just telling you that's how they're going, and it's untenable. Like, they're ultra luxury apartment buildings. They're not low income housing.
The goal is to
Chris,
basically go for
did they have
gentrification.
to get zoning changes for some of these? Because I'm assuming some of those areas were zoned to only for single family, and that's
No, Ken. I mean, in Orange County, they're doing it too. It just depends on who's lobbying local governments. It is what it is, and maybe we could change it. But to Chris's point, yeah, there's some new skyscrapers that are in downtown LA, Century City, and I was shocked that even at the pandemic, they're offering like 1.7 million, 2 million for like a 2-bedroom condo, really small, maybe
Oh yeah, but
2,000
I
square
used to live
foot.
that way, so I know. So downtown LA and Century City wouldn't be zoned for single family, but where Chris lives, I would suspect, Chris, where you live, it's zoned for single family. That's my
No,
guess.
I'm still SFR, but like I'm saying, like the San Fernando Valley, like where typically you could have a more affordable housing if you worked in LA and you wanted to commute an hour. Now, like, you're now pushed to where I live in Thousand Oaks, where you're now an hour and a half out of LA. I mean, that's what I'm saying is the urban sprawl is not built to help the low and middle class. They're
Oh, I
built
understand that point. Yeah.
to build up on the they're gentrifying everywhere, and and that's the issue. And I'm
But
typically
Chris, let me ask you though: if I bought your house without a zoning change, could I just build a condo with 6 units or 10 units instead of
no,
having?
of course not. But
That's
Almost
what's
nowhere
my
can you
point.
do that.
But
what's
but hold on,
changing
guys.
is
Okay,
ADUs.
but guys, in Irvine, commercial real estate is changing. They're now 5 stack by UCI, the university, which wasn't there before. It was all single housing or condos. They're now 5, 6, 7 story box buildings. Okay, literally, they're apartments or homes, condos. So we are
That's
going
because the
higher.
Irvine company and Donald Brent's family control most of it. They do whatever they want. That's a very unique situation.
Yeah, we're my in-laws are connected to the evil empire through the household staff. So they worked for Donald Bren. They're like the household staff for Bren. We get
Tyler,
some interesting hand-me-downs.
Tyler. question for you. Cushman and Wakefield, they're out of the United States, correct? Cushman and Wakefield is a big real estate development company out of the US, right?
Commercial real estate, yes,
Commercial,
yes.
okay. There's a very interesting dynamic in combination with commercial and residential that's happening also here across the pond, because Cushman and Wakefield has finally come into what we call World Trade Center as well here in Amsterdam, but it's like named after the World Trade Center. It's their Baker McKenzie, Deloitte, Dentsu, like all of the major companies of consulting and legal are in this area that's called WTC. And I've noticed over the past 3-4 years, probably 5, that Cushman and Wakefield has been coming in and sort of snapping up some of the commercial properties that are needing to be in some ways saved, because the competitive advantage of Holland is in the toilet, as paraphrasing my MBA professor and executive of the program, because it's such a small country, but they have it's like a chihuahua, small country with a big attitude. But the main thing is that the United States, one of my private yoga clients, it works with one of the largest real estate tax law firms, and said that the United States has been buying up property and land here in Holland since 2016 in large chunks. And I just saw last weekend when I was out with a buddy of mine by Dam Square, there was a protest because, to Charles and LS's and Ken's point, the commercial is now also spilling into the residential, because the commercial have the investments to make those big buildings with the retail ground floor, whatever the case may be. But for example, Amsterdam is a major student city, major. And there was a massive demonstration prior to them releasing this lockdown by students and people that concerned with the students, because there is a super student housing shortage. And it's such a shortage that the students and even professors are taking to the streets. And what I've translated by the signs from Dutch to English is exactly what Chris, Ken, and Ellis are talking about right now, that these large real estate development companies that have a large cash flow on their balance sheets are gobbling up properties all over the world, not just in major cities of the United States, all over the world. And they're making them into these sort of huge buildings that have very expensive rent, but they're missing the mark on the fact that the person living in the city does not have that revenue and that disposable income to afford the rent, which in essence is what's going to start happening in New York City to some degree, with the empty shops that you see in the Lower East Side or in Tribeca or in Soho, because the real estates are so astronomically expensive, and the owners or the landlords don't want to acquiesce on how much they want to take. So you're seeing a lot of sort of haunted, very expensive spaces, and then you're just wondering who the hell is paying for them.
On paper is where they primarily exist. It's a cornered market with an asset bubble that's highly leveraged. Essentially, if they ever accurately value the real estate, it's going to cause financial collapse. So essentially, if you actually want to fix the issue, they're trying to basically figure out a way of deflating that without basically causing a chain reaction.
Got it.
And that's,
thanks, Chris.
yeah.
Okay, here we go. We got to blast through these here in the next 20 minutes. IKEA launching live shopping. Told you. You can now go to the tweet I just twatted on Twitter to click the link to IKEA's live shopping. You have to enable cookies is the first thing they'll tell you. And then you'll see their calendar, and you can import it into your Google Calendar or Apple Calendar, what have you, and enjoy their live shopping. Here it comes. Get ready. It's going to be massive. And the next article's from TechCrunch, which says, brands considering a live shopping strategy must lean on influencers. IKEA, do you have influencers? I don't know if you do. You got to get some influencers. Ahead of a volatile retail season, one theme is clear. It's now or never moment for brands to adopt live shopping. Expanding their audience ownership and building their big presence online. Here it comes. Online shopping. It's going to be massive. Singapore population sees biggest percent drop since 1950. Why is that, Cheryl?
I guess we didn't replace our people enough.
Yes.
And also, they also mentioned PR, right? So basically, I guess Singaporeans, we only have 3-point-something million plus permanent resident. But there are also many permanent residents have to leave the country because, they lost their job too. So I don't think it's a big drop, but compared to the previous years, like I think since 1970 is dropping, but I don't think the number is huge. But yeah, it's declining. I guess it's also during COVID, they are not allowing more people to come in.
Biggest decline since 1950. Same with China. They just had their biggest decline since 1950. So
yeah, we need more Singaporeans.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe we can get by with less people.
No, we only have 3.
There's not going to be jobs for them anyways.
Yeah, that's
no. Singaporeans have jobs, but the PRs are non-Singaporeans.
I'm just saying. That's one way. That's one way to. The robots are coming in. So.
No, you know what? But the thing in Singapore is the government create jobs. They purposely create jobs. Like, for example, I think many of you may have visited Singapore. You know, there's this public housing called the HDB. Do you know that? I mean, they all look quite clean and nice, right? But the government mandate every 5 years you need to repaint the walls.
Making jobs. Yeah, like people at gas stations in Oregon where you can't do the gas
and then
yourself.
Our roads are very nice compared to a lot of other places. But every once in a while they'll just redo it.
Nice.
So the Singapore government is always creating jobs. Yeah.
This is one of the things historically behind a lot of the public works administration programs in the United States, specifically around a lot of our National Forest Service during the 1930s, Great Depression type kind of era. They actually used they recruited millions, tens of millions of people, literally to just basically go into the woods in the middle of nowhere and build out like cabins and roads and like all sorts of infrastructure that basically we're still benefiting from like 100 years later with stuff, which is crazy. But those sorts of large public infrastructure projects, essentially, they have a lot of long-term value.
Cheryl, just to give you a perspective, that Stockholm, which is twice the size. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Just 1 second. It takes twice the size of Singapore as a country. Is 975,000 inhabitants now. We need more people.
No. We need more Swedish.
Sorry, Tyler.
Okay.
Yeah. You have more headlines to
That's right. We gotta get through these in the next 15 minutes. I got 30 headlines in 15 minutes. Here we go. Google Meet starts beta testing live translations, initially supporting the translations of English meetings into Spanish, French, Portuguese, and German. And this will be fantastic for telemedicine so that you could have doctors in very, very, very low-paying parts of the world providing, and this is going to unlock a huge opportunity for people in.
So, this is one of those sectors. I mean, this is replicating the Star Trek translators, but one of the things that's really important about this is every time they come up with this, the technical execution is really important on time. This is one of the things that essentially we know how to do it. It's about execution speed and the feedback loops for what's the delay for essentially when people are speaking, because there are some very natural human reaction times. You can see that here on Clubhouse when the delay factor on some of the things or on Zoom calls, if it goes beyond a second or 2 or 5 or 6, it suddenly dramatically affects the pace of what can get done.
I love the idea of like Burmese doctors making money.
French and German, because I can understand Spanish, but in low-paid income countries, it's more sort of other languages like Indian and maybe even Mandarin, but I don't see how maybe French, but German is that in a low-paid country?
No, they're not focused on the point that I'm bringing up, which is the future of why this will be so interesting. They're focusing on where they have the most users at the moment and the most requests for the translation. Germans suck at English quite generally relative to their neighbors, so it makes perfect sense to do English to German for these. But the young folks in Germany are doing fine. The older folks didn't get as much English before the war, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink,
most
nudge, nudge.
Young Germans speak fluent English.
Yeah,
in my experience.
No,
of Americans
as somebody who's surrounded by Germans year round, relative to their neighbors, not so great. Especially the ones who were in high school before the war. After the war, interestingly, they had a huge uptick in their English adoption. What an interesting...
Pre-World War I and end of World War II, but I was assuming it was pre-World War I, 1/3 of the American population spoke German. It was something that basically they the Lutherans and everything, they basically stopped teaching their kids it essentially because it's considered to be unpatriotic.
Yeah, French makes all. I mean, I take it all back because holy shit, is France ridiculously bad at holy shit, France
Tyler,
with their English. Oh my god. Yeah,
Tyler, I'd have to agree with you there. I think, first of all, this is one of my loves.
We have to move on. We have 30 articles in 15
very
minutes.
Quickly,
yes.
The best English is in Scandinavia.
Yes, I know.
Because Benelux, similar to what Chris just said, but the English is basically horrible when it comes to translation of context.
Yeah. So the next is from Evan from the UAE. Researchers have invented a new desalination system that dramatically reduces energy consumption during the desalination process, which is the real bottleneck to doing desal is that it's very energy intensive, thus very expensive. So a headline like this is very important if we want to have water in the future. So let's hope this works as advertised. I just tweeted it out for those who want to jump into it. The low energy desal system has been granted a patent by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Fantastic. Let's pray to sweet Jesus this works. This could be one of the most important innovations that human beings could be doing at the moment as we run out of water everywhere. And we covered the GM truck. Thank you for PT Yoder for that one. And Robert Johnson sends in this fantastic one from Al Jazeera. Cuba begins commercial exports of its COVID-19 vaccines.
Okay, just for reference, if you look at the OEC world data for things, like Cuba is absolutely amazing.
Yep.
It's like rare artwork and like chickens. I think I'll get the actual data here with it. Yep. So when they export anything that basically the other countries will basically take and basically report in trade data, because they do other trades. But one of the things that's really unique about Cuba specifically for people in the audience who are less familiar with this, they have something called essentially doctors for trade, where essentially they will basically send their doctors abroad and use them to trade for like oil
Correct.
and stuff like this.
Yes.
And yeah, it's
They're brilliant.
whole. Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things is that they've got one of the most poorest countries on the planet, and yet essentially life expectancy is it's in the top 10. Yeah. So essentially, this gets trot out with essentially, especially being right south there from USA, where we've got the most expensive healthcare on the planet, and our life expectancy is essentially kind of not as great as it should be compared to a lot of developed countries. Yeah. So it shows essentially what's possible. One last factor on this is that Cuba essentially has a method where they basically, when they train people to train other people to train other people, and this is a very rapid way of basically spreading knowledge very quickly. While they do have limitations on the upper side of medicine, the fact is if you do preventative and you basically have one of the highest population doctors to overall population ratios in the world, it works.
And one just
we gotta go. Nope, we will not finish, or we just stop without finishing.
The actual medical doctor. Sorry.
Europe's energy crisis is about to go global as gas prices soar, according to Bloomberg. Millions of people around the globe will feel the impact of soaring natural gas prices this winter. You've been warned. Asif, you need to comment on Cuban's COVID vaccine.
I was just going to, not on Cuban, because they select their medical students in juniors in nursery, and by asking kids who is caring for you, so their system is completely different to ours.
Yeah,
and that I think may have something to do with it as well.
Okay. And then China power crunch is next economic shock after Evergrande, the big property developer real estate collapse that's happening in China. And now they're having a power crunch, which we've been reporting on now for 3 days in a row, just not unlike that previous headline, which was what again? For those with short-term memory loss, Europe's energy crisis is coming for the rest of the world too. Millions of people around the globe will feel the impact of soaring natural gas prices this winter. Same with the coal prices in China. They have millions of people without power in China, and the EU is going to have the same. And energy, if you don't have your own energy, and in both cases, these are two areas that import a lot of energy. Europe gets its energy from Russia in the form of natural gas. That's what the Nord Stream pipe at Nord Stream 2 pipe is all about. And then China gets a lot of its energy from the Persian Gulf. And there's a super interesting headline coming up about that. They both are major energy importers. Energy importers, it's starting now. You're seeing it in these headlines. Mark my words, read the book, Disunited Nations by Peter Zeihan. He predicted all this. If you're an energy importer, you are fucked.
You know why? What's energy denominated in? What do we trade energy in, folks? Dollars.
If you do not, your country, if your country's an energy importer, please research this and understand your power is going out. You're going to be black and dark in the middle of winter very soon if your country is an energy importer. Take responsibility for yourself as a domesticated cat. Learn how to catch a fucking bird and go get your own energy source for your house. It's not that hard.
Retrofits for housing for insulations can increase the efficiency rates, somewhat astounding ratios. You're looking at 60-70% increases on essentially, or I think in this context actually decreases in the amount of energy consumed. The reason why this is a big deal is the retrofits aren't actually that expensive if you have a dedicated infrastructure and government policies for doing so. But this is something that you have to basically plan ahead. Doing it in the middle of energy stuff is not fun.
Yeah, Bloomberg says factories across China ordered to curb activity or shut down, and many of them are shutting down. The next one from David Crace is YouTube influencers are now launching their own cell phone services in Mexico. In a YouTube video shared by a Mexican influencer stands in an office next to an antenna labeled Alton Redis. I think he's part of the Helium network, I would assume. That would be this.
Does Carlos Slim have an opinion on this?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. The next one is from Poppy. Artificial intelligence provides sharper images of lunar craters that contain water and ice on the fucking moon, y'all. There's ice on the moon. And these AIs with sharper images of lunar craters have now discovered water and ice on the moon.
Keep in mind, when we say tuck ice, essentially that's like if you drop an ice cube in a desert and essentially like one patch is slightly wetter, that's the ratio we're talking. It's very tiny quantities. That's enough to industrially process. It's not like lakes and stuff.
Ford will build 4 new factories in a big electric vehicle push. $11.4 billion on 3 battery factories and a truck plant, creating 11,000 new jobs from the New York Times. Maybe it's got something to do with that new EV 410 truck we just talked about, which FedEx and everyone else is going to be using. Just a hint.
And where are they going to get the lithium for that? Because the entire mining industry has to scale by 100 times to meet the demand, essentially, for full electrification. It's going to be a competition for sources there very quickly. They're a mining apparatus.
A complaint asks U.S. Customs to ban Apple products imports. Oh, why? Why is there a complaint asking U.S. Customs to ban Apple product imports? The Campaign for Accountability believes the ban is warranted based on Apple suppliers using X. Oh, sorry. Where's my Jeopardy theme? Why is the campaign? Why is the Campaign for Accountability asking U.S. Customs to ban Apple product imports?
Child slave labor for
Chris,
because
chips,
from China.
Chips related to
Chris got it. Forced. You said child slave labor. The correct answer is forced labor. Close enough.
Oh, I'll say child slave labor. I've looked at this one really close with things. One of the last things that Steve Jobs did before he died actually was to buy a very large plot of land in the Congo. Apple has teased at various points of looking at seeing if they want to do some supply chain over there, but it's PR essentially.
4 minutes, 4 minutes, 20 headlines. Here we go. Highly probable COVID-19. Now, granted, here's South China Morning Post. Here's the headline from South China Morning Post. Chinese scientists offer new study to shift back date of COVID-19 spread in U.S. Researchers use U.S. public data to draw the conclusion but did not calculate how many cases were imported. China has become more overt in pointing finger at the U.S., particularly after Biden tasked U.S. intelligence with investigating the lab leak theory. And the headline says, highly probable COVID-19 was in the U.S. in September of 2019, according to Chinese researchers. So it's our fault, everybody. Please don't attack Tiananmen Square. We're a good government. We didn't cause COVID. It's America's fault. So, Robert Johnson sends in this one from RT from Russia, state media. And what is the headline here, Robert? Russia wants you to know that everyone is sick and tired of big tech and blatant American interference in Russian elections, according to Russian President Medvedev. So it's America who's meddling in elections now. Is it Russia?
That's rich.
This week alone.
Hey, it's a long-running tradition.
Many countries this week alone, including Germany, name Russia as meddling in their elections. This week.
Don't call them banana republics for nothing.
But now Russia is claiming that America is meddling, and not America, but specifically YouTube and big tech. Well, because we didn't remove your political opponent's app, which we ended up removing because you threatened to beat the shit out of their team members who are on the ground in Moscow.
Over for tea.
Yes. How
isn't that Google and others who removed actually the oppositions,
yes.
but kept the information for the government?
And we're meddling in their elections, right? By keeping their political opponents' apps in the app stores, right? Sure, exactly. So you have to love when.
God forbid you're on the receiving end of one of their of one of the things like death to Kamami or whatever it was with things on Iran. If you're on an embargo or sanctions with things, you get the extra basically versions of these.
So pandemic pushes Chinese tech giants to roll out more courier robots. And you can see, I just tweeted it out. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is the future. Guaranteed. More than 1,000 robots are set to join the delivery personnel ranks of Chinese behemoths Alibaba, Meituan, and JD over the next year. And you can look at this little miniature car. It looks like a car for a 3-year-old child, but it's a self-driving delivery bot. It's by Meituan, one of the biggest delivery company, easily the biggest delivery company on the planet. So that's their new car, the Meituan self-driving little childlike minibus. It's gorgeous. I know the future when I see it. That thing's the future. Take a look. I just tweeted it. Elon Musk eclipses $200 billion to become richest person in the world yet again. And
keep in mind, they built the Starship during COVID with stuff. They were sending corn silos paragrating through the sky. It's the size of the Statue of Liberty. They built that essentially where JPL and the other labs were just shut down.
Oh, shit.
That's really freaking impressive.
Top of the hour. So we'll have to save the other headlines. Here's the last one I just tweeted out. It's a video that you have to see. Again, this you must see this video. This is why, if you have any doubt that we are switching to a fully autonomous factory system in the next couple of years, I mean, less than 5 years, watch the video I just tweeted out of AI-powered trash sorters that can sort plastic from paper, from all this stuff, and watch how fast they do it. And watch how accurately they do it using image recognition, object detection. Just watch the video and shit yourself, and then go ahead and start planning for where you're going to move to get your supply of energy and water. And just watch the video of these robots sorting trash from plastic, from paper, and everything else for recycling at 10 times the speed of humans, and probably 10 times the accuracy. And they do it 24 hours a day with no unions, no paid time off, no nothing. And then realize
a ton of pneumatics, right? Like a bunch of little air jets that identify.
Watch the video. Watch the video and be prepared. The next thought is going to be, okay, I've now seen the future. Okay, I understand there will be no more humans in any of these factories. Okay, and the cars, and the last article, totally unprepared, was the Meituan delivery mini car that can drive right up to your front door. And understand that the combination of these things that are happening at an incredible pace, the amount of investment money that we report on daily going into these efforts is monumental. And understand this is, you think, and by the way, that headline with Ken, with the homeless Americans and 3% and all that, understand that's going to become, when we were wondering if it's 30 million households, it will be 30 million households in the next 5 years.
Social
I
structures
think African leaders are gonna resist, because here in Ethiopia they really are working so hard to create job opportunities for just the millions of young people, really joblessness. So I'm not sure they would be open to that. At least not recent.
Messi, soon. Did you look at the video I just tweeted of the trash sorting robot?
No.
Please do.
Okay.
The only jobs are going to be repairing robots, is what I realized.
Medical could be a thing that we could afford to train like a 10 or 100 times more doctors than currently exist and flood the world's supply with that. Preventive medicine could keep a lot of people employed.
That's a good one, Chris.
Same
That's
thing
a
for teachers.
fantastic.
There's a whole list of essentially post robot jobs that we could basically put a lot of people into. Biology studies that can go on and on. Anyways, top of the hour with stuff.
Yeah,
but
I got to run.
There's good things after.
I got a meeting, and we still have a ton of headlines to get into, so we will do that when we meet again. And thank you, everybody, for another fun Tech News Around the World. We'll see you again soon. Have a wonderful Wednesday, everybody.
Thanks, Tyler. Be safe, everyone.
You. Take care, everyone.
Later.
Goodbye.
Thanks.
Have a great subway.
Yes.
Oh, Messi, you have African news later too, right?
Yes, please do tweet the African Tech News. We have that.